Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 203, C2E2 Part 1. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm James Stegall, and joining me is Sean Whalen. Sean, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hawkman, he's back.
Do you want to tell them why I did that at the beginning of the episode?
Well, we're sitting here, and people are approaching the table, talking. Hey, how you doing? And I kind of forgot my name.
You introduced yourself.
I introduced myself,
and
as
you
Sean.
introduced me as you.
I'm like, yeah. My name's Sean. Is my co-host Jim. And as soon as I said it, I didn't even. And here's the sad thing. I want to say, as soon as I said it, I realized what I did, but that would be a lie. I didn't. I just kept going.
I caught him.
And he's sitting there, and right in front of us, like, hey, Jim, like, what did I do? And I'm just laughing, and it just, oh God, that was just
like, dude, you just introduced me.
Yeah, I introduced myself as Sean, but I did later on ask a Sean question, so I think I've
wait, and here we go. One other thing too, we have name tags on it. He still screwed it up.
Yeah. Hey, look over there. Look at that great Superman costume. Okay, let's move on.
Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Also want to shout out Get Your Geek on Radio. It's GetYourGeekOnRadio.com. And Jim, what kind of a podcast are we? Because we're going to be talking about Blackest Night number 0 kind of organically through the panels because things were talked about at the panels. Flash number 1 and the recent events in the most recent issue of Green Arrow. So what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in depth in the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing, especially of the comics you mentioned, because we do some massive, massive spoilers on the story. So if you haven't read them, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of the DC panels. This is going to be broken up into multiple parts. The second part of this is going to have a special interview with Jamal Igle that we actually recorded before the con. I'm still in the process of editing it, so I want to release that one in the second part of this one. So it's nice and clean, and Jamal gave us 2 hours of his time, so I definitely want to make sure to have that on the second part of this. But Jim, C2E2 in general, how have you been enjoying this con?
Dude, this has been just an amazing, amazing experience. I'm just sitting here, Chicago, that toddling town. I tell you, I'm having a ball here. This has been just a great just environment, atmosphere. It's nice and open, nice spaciousness. There is just comfortability, but there's also a nice high energy here. This is something you can definitely see. Read Group's done a couple cons. They're getting their groove, and it's, they're learning from past missteps and or issues they had, and we're going through and having some great stuff here. This has been a fun con.
I do like how spread out everything is, because it's been very easy to navigate, even when it was at its busiest, between the different aisles. And I think that's been good for Artist Alley. It's been good for me as far as going through the retailer end of it. And I've been really enjoying this con for that purpose. The guest list is really stellar. This is one, if you were on the fence about coming this year, please make sure to come to C2E2 next year. This is going to become a yearly thing for me.
Oh, definitely. And it's fun that it is in downtown Chicago. We've gotten to do some great stuff. Mm-hmm. This year we got to, we of course hit the Geno's East, get a little scarfing. We hit the second city.
It was funny, on the Second City show, I'd slept an hour the night before, and then I taught the whole day, the day before. There was this skit on there where somebody was bobbing their head repeatedly like they were falling asleep. And they were really making fun of, the goofy way that people look when they do that. And I was laughing for 2 different reasons, because I knew I was going to be heading in that direction, because we went to the 11 o'clock at night show, and I was having such a blast at it. But then I started doing that. It was an absolute riot. So I became that guy.
Yep.
But we also went to an evening with Neil Gaiman, which was here for the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. And I actually bought a signed copy of one of his books at the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, which is great because the proceeds went to supporting that. And it's a great program. So it's the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. If you haven't checked it out, there'll be links in the show notes for that. And I was great. That was something where you were kind of on the fence about going, but then I was loving how good a time you were having.
Oh my God. It was poetry reading, it was short story reading, but it wasn't just him reading, because he's a very entertaining, he's a performer as well as it's going on. It wasn't like juggling or anything like that, really, he was getting into the reading. It was just a dramatic reading, but it was also comical reading. It was just this great... It was
pretty darn close to 3 hours with the guy.
Oh, yeah, and you know what? I was cool with it. I
loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't feel like that. I'm just saying, it cooked. Because he was really good at dividing it up between longer form stories, short poems, anecdotes, Q&A, and then, there was a nice little intermission there where you could take a look at the comic book legal defense fun stuff, but it really cooked. I mean, it did not feel like what it was at all, and I was really impressed by the amount of time that he gave everybody, and that his energy stayed consistent all the way through, and there was a genuine warmth coming from him. He's a fantastic creator, and to actually see that that's who he is in person was great.
Yeah, definitely an amazing experience.
So, yeah, this con is just this is all stuff outside of the actual con experience itself, which had an amazing array of panels, from smaller panels that were more targeted to mood and experience with comics, to larger ones that were done by the big companies, which I just think it's been a nice con. For a first time out for a con,
yes,
I thought it was really well done. And that's one of the things to remember. This is the first happening of this, and this felt pretty polished for a first happening. There's always things to improve, but boy, I'm a lock for next year. It's not even a question.
Yeah, no question. We're here.
Carter Hall, scientific genius from a far-off world, flies into action as Hawkman.
Jim, we were at the C2E2 convention. How are you enjoying this? This is the first time for this convention. It's in Chicago. Huge facility here. How are you enjoying this convention?
Chicago, that toddling town. Chicago, the whatnot will be around. Bet your bottom dollar that drnorge will be there too. At Chicago, at C2E2. I'm really excited, if you can't tell, about this con. This has been a fun experience here. It's a great layout, nice, open, spacious. This has just had a really positive energy, and as I'm singing into the mic, I have people looking at me, kind of like, what the heck's he doing? But you know what?
People ran away from our table when
we had a couple people run away, but
I want to run away from our table. I can't get out from behind here.
You're stuck here.
What else is normal from the normal podcasting that we do? Jim, I want to talk about the DC Nation panel, which happened yesterday. For those of you that have never been to a DC Nation panel, this is DC's event where they connect with the fans. So the purpose of this one, it's a Q&A. A lot of it is directed to the fans. Tell us what you're thinking about the books. They'll guide it and talk about the main events that are going on right now. Jim, attending this panel and this was the first time that I'd seen this. I don't know if it happened at other cons over the last year, but this is no longer just a DC panel. They brought in people from Vertigo. So present for this one was Dan DiDio, James Robinson, Brian Azzarello, author Peter Straub, Scott Snyder, Jeff Johns, and Jim Lee. So it was a mixture of Vertigo authors and DC authors. Peter Straub was the first one to kick off, and he was talking about his upcoming Vertigo hardcover, Green Woman, which is about a serial killer, and it takes place in a retirement home where it sounds like the population's going to be made up of, if not exclusively serial killers, there's going to be a decent amount of serial killers there. So it's a serial killer story set in a retirement home.
That kind of just the concept sounding, it sounds like it's going to be a fun read.
Yeah, and Michael Easton is involved with that book as well. And I'm a fan of Peter Straub from his work with Stephen King on books like The Talisman and Black House, which are fantastic books. Lots of time, they went around the audience to see where people came from, and there was a guy from Australia, that to me is impressive, to fly from Australia to a convention here in Chicago, and it was just really excited. He said a big DC fan and was excited to be here. A lot of first-time convention goers, which for a convention this size, I was really surprised to see how many people were first-time convention goers, and this was their first convention ever. They did kind of a poll of the audience on things like Brightest Day and how people are enjoying Dead Man, and people were talking about how they love the mysteries that are building out of this. And this is the best thing since 52, a lot of people were saying. How do you feel about that Brightest Day so far? Do you compare this to other weekly books, or are you just looking at this as, how are you looking at this book? Because I thought the 52 comparison was interesting.
I think the 52 comparison is a great comparison because I loved 52. And I'm really, this has started out right out the gate. Boom, as an explosion of energy. So I'm thinking, this is going to be another kind of 52. I'm saying on another 52 on the same success scale as 52 was. But I think it's by having it not be 52 issues, by having it be a 26 issue, by having it spread out every other week, I think that's going to be a little bit better for him. And in the end, will probably work out.
There always seems to be criticism whenever books tie into something else. I think thematically, this Brightest Day is an overarching banner because they talked about that. Is this an event where you have to pick up all the books? No. Like Flash is self-contained. Birds of Prey is self-contained. Stuff in Green Lantern is self-contained from all this. This book looks like it's focusing exclusively on like Hawkman, Aquaman, Deadman. But the whole theme is that coming out of Blackest Night, we've got this issue where people are back now from the dead. How is that going to affect things? I do think the events with Jade that we're seeing in Brightest Day, we're going to see carry over into the Green Lantern books, obviously with Kyle, and how that relationship's going to be out of all this. I'm assuming we might see some of Jade in JSA, maybe, or at least see Alan Scott coming over into the Green Lantern books to interact with her, if it doesn't happen in JSA. And see, I don't have any problems with that because that should intersect in those manners. But it looks like Brightest Day is something you can read in and of itself or read all of it together to get kind of a view of where DC's going. That was where I think the bi-weekly works as well with the series. If you're into the whole Brightest Day banner thing, you can pick up this bi-weekly and yet still enjoy new books like The Flash and Birds of Prey and really enjoy that kind of thing. Or you can just read Brightest Day by itself. I think that kind of flexibility is into the whole thing. I'm a big fan of the weekly books, though. Yeah. This is, like with issue 0 of this, I already want to read issue 1. So this is a good move. And I agree with you that the bi-weekly thing and the 52 comparison is a good one. Osiris. There was some love for Osiris and the pageantry involved around, and the return of Max Lord and the evil of that. Do you have a thread beat that you're most excited from Brightest Day so far? I know we read issue 0. Do you have one that like just kind of makes you go, wow, this is cool?
Well, definitely the Osiris thing, because I am the Black Adam the Black Adam, the Black Marvel family, however you want to refer to them. That was the thing that I really loved, and it was a cool story where they were turned into stone, but I do want to see the return of Black Adam. I do want to see the return of Isis and Osiris. I want that family unit to come back, because that for me was a really just a neat thing. And then you also think about it, you can't have Osiris come back and not deal with the rest of the Marvel family. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be kind of interesting, because I'm starting to get into the Marvel family. The Billy Batson and the Magic of Shazam, that series has kind of got me curious about the Marvel family.
Do you see Billy and Mary playing into this?
I don't know if they'll play into it.
Because I was going to say, when you're saying the Marvel family...
The only reason I'm thinking that is, how can you not have part of the Marvels and not have at least all of them some type of connection to it?
I see Freddy being potentially more involved than Billy and Mary. Although you're right, maybe thematically we might see.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. Would you be disappointed if Black Adam and Isis are not restored from this?
If the story they tell why they're not restored is an actual story, then there's something involved with it, I'd be fine with it. It's the same thing where what would I ideally like to see? I would like to see them come back. But in the story as it's playing out, as it's being told, if there's an explanation as to why, because obviously Osiris is going to try to restore his family. If there's a reason why he fails, and we see that in the story, I'm like, okay, cool. That's the story they wanted to go with, And It's one of those things where I'd be upset, but I wouldn't be angry or hateful over their decisioning if I get this story. If it just suddenly disappears and he were to start working on something else, then I'd be like, huh? But I know that's not going to happen. This creative team isn't going to do that. They've telling these great stories where there's a reason he's back. And in that issue 0, we saw the pageantry that was Kahndaq. And once again, their champion has returned, and he's going to restore his family. And I think that is going to be something we are going to see overall story-wise. And that's something I'm really looking forward to.
I don't have an end goal for Osiris. I'm curious, though, one of the things that I like about him is he could be a tool for us to see. Obviously, we're going to see a reaction to what's happened with Black Adam and Isis, which I'm glad. They've been turned into statues so far, and we haven't seen much else with it since then. So I'm ready now to, let's revisit this and see what's going to happen because of it. So whether they're restored or not is irrelevant to me as much as where are they going with this? What does this all mean? Obviously, this was put in place for a purpose. So we're going to start seeing what that is. Does this mean we're going to see Freddy? And, how Freddy's going to react to all this? Maybe. Billy or Mary? Maybe. Yeah. And those possibilities interest me because whatever it is, there's a reason for having those in here. I do think we're going to see some forward movement on some of those threads, which that interests me. What movement are we going to see and why?
Definitely.
And how does the world feel about all this in general?
That's another thing. Interesting to see reactions.
Will they embrace him or not? Or are they going to view him as a threat?
Dude, I'm saying threat.
Yeah.
Especially if all three of them come back. Once again, they'll be seen as a threat. Doc will be seen as a potential threat, which could definitely be interesting stuff coming out of the future. As well as we got now 2 JSA teams.
Right.
Who knows what one of them will do. We got Magog, who is a loose cannon, who has, though he's not part of the All-Stars anymore, I'm still thinking there's going to be still some connection. So, yeah, there's definitely going to be some cool reactions.
Also, his relationship with the Titans and the world in general when he was in the public eye was not very good. So that to me is going to be interesting because I don't think that he does have a good public relationship. The other thread beat I mentioned was Max Lord, which is one that's intriguing me more and more. One of the spoiler warnings that we put on the beginning of this was about Brightest Day number 0. I'm going back to the other event. Brightest Day number 0. And we see that Max Lord now is going out of his way to wipe the minds of everybody of his existence, which is going to be interesting because now the world at large doesn't know about him. I'm interested in what that means for the death of Blue Beetle and what people know about that. What are they going to think happened to Blue Beetle? Because we're going to see that the members of the JLI, it looks like, are going to remember Max Lord, and they are going to hunt him down.
Right. That's what I understand. The JLI or Generations Lost or whatever. That's going to be the premise behind it. Is that they remember what Max did, and they're the only ones, and so they're going to take him down, or figure it out, or prove it, or however they're going to do whatever the plan is. To do what they got to do. And it's funny because I'm trying to figure out why they would remember. Now if you think about who is going to be in there, it's going to be Booster, who's off in the time sphere, so that would probably protect him. There was
Fire and Ice,
as well as Captain Adam. So maybe because of where they're located or where they're at, that's something I'm curious to see why it didn't work on them.
You've been picking up the hardcovers.
Oh yeah. I've been picking up that, and it's been fun.
Peter, how are you?
I'm on Raging Bullets!
Peter Rios from Comic Geek Speak. How are you, Peter?
I just ambushed your show.
No, that's all right. We like you.
You talk about Generation Lost?
We are.
Can I tell you that? Okay. When I first saw Generation Lost and Green Arrow and Birds of Prey, I was like, okay, Gail Simone, Ed Bennis back on Birds of Prey, I'm sold.
Right.
But I was like, okay, we didn't know what the connection was. I was like, maybe I'll get him. Maybe I'll get the Deathstroke thing. And then Blackest Night 8, Brightest Day 0, and I went, oh man, DC, why do you gotta hook me back into all this stuff?
Isn't it exciting? Like Generation Lost, I was excited because of Keith Giffen being back in some capacity with that team. But I didn't know the hook. I had no idea that Max Lord was going to be... Now all of a sudden that they're hunting Max Lord and that whole premise is there, now I'm excited for the premise.
Yeah.
Which that's where things have... I'm with you. The teasers before were very cool.
But they felt individual. They didn't feel like a unified thing. Not that they're supposed to, but it was sort of like...
Dude,
what was I supposed
to be back?
Oh, my God. Come on. I'm talking DC. What's up, Jim? How are you?
I'm good.
See, I'm excited for Hawk and Dove because I haven't read really strong Hawk and Dove in ages because there hasn't been a Hawk and Dove in a series.
When I saw that they brought him back, I was like, okay, Hawk was like they pushed his attitude into that very 90s grim and gritty, gonna beat up everybody, and I was like, okay, but so I'm interested to see what they do. I think if you're gonna have a Hawk and Dove, you probably need the original Hawk back. We don't need the Dove back because he had his part. The female Dove has a strong connection to the JSA and the DC universe, so she's earned her part. But I was like, the female Hawk was interesting, but having him back again, That's a lot of history there. A lot of history.
I also think he's going to be an interesting catalyst with characters like Dinah Lance. I think he's going to be particularly interesting with Huntress and Lady Blackhawk, who both have a really strong, Barbara Gordon even, really strong backbone female characters who aren't going to take his nonsense.
I'm like blowing out your sound levels, I think. But what about Hawk? Hawk was Monarch, right? Like, what are they going to do with that? How are they? He's back, right? Like, remember
Monarch was Captain Atom.
Well, originally.
Oh, yeah, but then we had the original. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see what of the history of you've seen with Hawk. Is he going to be aware of any of that?
Right.
That's going to be the interesting part for me with these characters is what do they remember, what do they know?
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of characters returning from Blackest Night in general in Brightest Day that I'm curious about. How much do they know of what they did?
Yeah.
And if they don't know yet, will they know? And how will they react to it? Will they be told? Obviously, they're going to be told by others. Will that be something that will affect them? Or are we going to find that there's more there in the subconscious than we realize?
And how to have Dead Man be your lead character in a book?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dead Man, come on.
That to me was, I was surprised at how much I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Because he was a character in Blackest Night who I was enjoying the way he was looking at all this. He added a horror aspect to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which to me, that was the key to that story was how terrifying it felt through there. And the only way you feel that is if you're journeying along with a character.
Yeah.
And I've always enjoyed the concept of Dead Man. I never felt like a strong personal connection to
and now
I feel a personal connection to this guy now, which is so cool. And that actually makes me think back to like 70s Batman, where we saw him teaming up with Batman. And I'm viewing him as a character even in that era in a different way now that I'm connected with him. There's a coolness.
One last thing. Speaking of Dead Man, and you guys are Neil Adams fans, yes?
Oh, I am. Huge.
Okay. Somebody this weekend, I don't know who, I'm not going to say their name. I saw the Batman stuff he's doing coming up.
Yeah.
Oh my God! It looks so good.
On the Source blog, they just put the cover.
Oh, I've seen.
Yeah.
A lot more than that.
I got. I don't know if you ended up getting these. They did the Batman illustrated by Neil Adams hardcovers.
Yeah.
They released one every year, and it was all recolored versions and like remastered
and almost
versions.
retouched. It
was.
Yeah.
And the way I've recommended them on the show multiple times. The quality and care they put into remastering that work, to me, there's so much classic work, especially where it's art-oriented, that should be redone. Those books, and then there was a DC universe illustrated by Neil Adams that's been released. Those books, to me, are just a visual masterpiece.
Wait till you see this. So good.
Yeah.
And cool. And we'll be talking soon, right?
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You bet, man. Sorry to
No, you're fine. That was perfect.
He literally took over my seat, and I graciously gave it up. But now I feel I have the power of the Peters in me. I think I can, I don't think anyone can stump me now. I have that knowledge. It's just osmosis.
Do you really want to say that again?
No. Well, the power's gone.
You said that out loud. Flash #1 was something that was brought up. And they were, in the early parts of this panel, they were really just kind of doing a general climate survey. I was surprised at this point because you and I have been so very happy because of what was going on in Blackest Night. I felt that was really a connection, even more so than Rebirth. It was Rebirth towards the end because I had already connected with him in Blackest Night. But in Rebirth, we saw a transition from him where in the beginning of it, it was hard to connect with Barry because Barry was having a hard time connecting with the world. Very good storytelling, so I'm not knocking Rebirth, but I felt like we had to go on a journey with him till the end where we started to really see how Barry now has become comfortable with this world. I was surprised at how many people now were saying that they still prefer Wally being in there. I'm a huge Wally fan. Wally is my Flash, and yet I am pro Barry. But the comment was made, which I thought was a good comment, that Barry died when this person was 6. So and I think it was Ian's girlfriend actually who had mentioned that at that point. And then there was other people in the audience who just said that Wally's been their Flash because of other media, like the cartoons, the Justice League Unlimited, for example. Wally has a rich media aspect as well. So I get that, and it's the same thing, the same argument that could be used for Kyle Rayner. But I think one thing I love about Jeff Johns is that he's a fan of playing with all the toys. So I don't see him getting rid of characters like Wally and Bart and Max. Those characters were brought back and, brought into this fold to be utilized in large events. Flashpoint is the big event and he said, I can't say anything about Flashpoint other than 2011, which is basically where the teaser ends with it. But, that just shows that he's got big events in mind for the Flash universe. We know from what he's done with Green Lantern, all of the big events have showcased and spotlighted all of the members of the Green Lantern Corps and pulled them in and used them in unique and interesting ways. I think we're going to see that same thing with the Flash family, where, the book's going to be very focused, but we are going to get spotlighting on those characters.
Well, here's the thing with me and the Flash, because I said in the beginning how, Bart was my Flash. That was really my intro to the character and who and what is the Flash. I knew, of course, who the Flash was. I knew about the powers, but I was never really an excited Flash, fan. Because I just figured, okay, he's a speedster, he's super fast, maybe you do some whirlwind type stuff, okay, hoorah, I wasn't too excited. And then as I started reading, some of the stuff with Kid Flash, with Bart, I started seeing some of the cool stuff the Flash can do. I'm like, this is kind of neat. I started getting into the character. We get rid of Bart, we bring in Wally, and I was like, wait a minute, okay, and then I gave Wally the chance. I was reading the Wally, I'm like, this is some neat stuff. And then as in comes, Barry now with, in Blackest Night, in, Rebirth, in Zero, in the Flash. This is a character I'm now understanding what makes the Flash so cool. What makes, this a cool power set, a cool hierarchy. And for me, there is no one person that's my Flash. I see all of these guys now as my Flash, and I'm really into the whole Flash family, the whole Flash environment, the environment and the entity. What makes a Flash? What makes these characters who they are, why they are, what they are? It's something I'm really getting into the, dare I say it, the whatnot of the Flash. It's that unknown, it's that fact that they all share in common. It's that positive, high energy that they're going to make it happen. They're the fastest men on the planet. They're going to make it because that's what they do. They're heroes first, foremost, through and through. And I'm really, really excited about Flash.
What is the whatnot of the Flash again? You said, dare I say it, and there was like this build-up, and I'm still not entirely sure what the heck you're talking about.
Well, anytime
I'm teasing. I'm actually teasing. I agree with your enthusiasm. To me, one of the interesting things about the Flash family is that each member, from Max Mercury, knowing a little bit more than everybody else about the Speed Force, where it comes from, and how it affects all of them, straight on through to Impulse. Wally's daughter now, being the newest generation of the Flashes, to people like John Fox, which we saw mentioned in the Zero issue, and perhaps even hints of John Fox in Flash #1. That's stuff that's all interesting to me because we see these characters that come from Wade, that come from Barry's rich history, that come from Wally's rich history being brought in. And that to me shows that it's not about excluding, it's about including. And I'm a big fan of that. Obviously, one of the things that came up at the DC Nation panel was Batman, the Return of Bruce Wayne. Throughout the audience, the end you asked the question, how many people think that Bruce Wayne is dead? No hands went up. One guy did. He goes, he goes, how many of you thought that Bruce Wayne was not going to return as Batman? And there was not a hand that went up except for one person. And he goes, we've got a bunch of stories that we can sell you right now that'll show you why you should have known that he was going to return. But I thought that was real interesting to see the audience thing on there. I'm curious to see what this is all going to mean for Dick Grayson. I also think this is going to be a lot longer of a process than I was thinking. I've been running under, and I don't know where you're at, I've been running under the assumption that we've already seen Bruce Wayne. I'm not 100% sure on that now because of the series that are being released. Have you seen the solicits for the Time Master series?
Well, I've seen the different Batman in the different time periods.
There's another series that's been solicited, The Hunt or Search for Bruce Wayne. It's called Time Master is the tagline for it.
I have not seen that one.
It's by Dan Jurgens, who has been writing Booster Gold. Rip Hunter takes a team, which it's Superman, Hal Jordan, and Booster Gold looking through time for Bruce Wayne.
That actually sounds really good.
I'm curious to see how that series is going to, now we're finding out that people are realizing Bruce is in fact alive. We saw that at the end of Blackest Night that has been, and obviously with Superman's War of the Superman and all that going to be wrapping up, Clark's going to be coming back into our world. He's going to be realizing what's been going on. I'm glad to see this because, if with my relationship with my friends, if I was operating with this type of technology and with access to these kind of people, if I knew that a friend of mine was still alive and they were lost in time, you better believe that I'd get a team of people together and I'd want to do this. So that adds a reality to that whole aspect for me, and I'm glad to see series like that being solicited. I'm also glad that it feels like this Bruce Wayne journey is not going to be, bam, we're dropping Bruce Wayne back in and Dick Grayson's being abandoned. It's more of there's going to be an organic process to this where we're going to see a reason for Bruce Wayne to come back. We're going to see, I feel we're going to see a Dick Grayson, whether he's Batman or not, who has a very powerful role in the DC Universe. I also firmly feel that I want Dick, talking about the Justice League, I want Dick Grayson to stay the leader of the Justice League. Because that is the most interesting thing about James Robinson's Justice League right now is that while this team is trying to form itself, Dick Grayson, Donna Troy is reinvigorated by all this. These are things that I'm interested in spinning out of this. Where do you want to see Dick Grayson after this? Are you set and locked in that you want to see him stay as Batman? Or do you feel that his role matters to you? Or that you want to just see him prominent?
I want to see him prominent. I would like to see him in the cowl still. I enjoy this version of Batman. I think it's a cool character, and I like how he has got a little bit of Bruce Batman. He's got a little bit of his own Nightwing style, but there is that meshing that makes him Dick Grayson Batman, makes him his own being, his own person.
We were talking to Dan Taubey yesterday about this, and talking about accessibility. And the accessibility of Batman right now with Dick Grayson as Batman. I think this is something that we've seen over time with Bruce as well, where Bruce is becoming more accessible and he smiles more. The relationship between Tim Drake and Batman now, I think, is just very interesting since 1 year later. And I think it's something that has been continuing to expand. And I think that's going to continue as Bruce returns. I still want to see Bruce back in the cowl. I don't want to see it like right away, though. I want to see it something that makes sense over time. I want to see the story develop. But it's got to be done in a way where the fact that Nightwing has been, or Batman has, obviously I'm leaning towards Nightwing coming back, but where Dick, whether he is Nightwing or Batman, still maintains a prominent role in the DC Universe. And leader of the Justice League, to me, is something that has to stick for him. Because I really like what Robinson's doing with him there. And I think that's something that needs to continue.
Oh, definitely. And, here's the thing. And I say I want Dick to remain in the cowl. If Bruce were to go back in, I wouldn't complain. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't say, oh, man, they're good. It's the whole what's told in the story. How is it told in the story? And we are going to get a nice, in-depth, laid out, flow through that makes this an actual story. So it's not going to be wham, bam, Bruce is back, okay, bam, Dick's back tonight. No, there's going to be some explanation because you got the X factor in all of this in Damian. What's going to happen to him? With if and when Bruce comes back, where will Damian fit into play? Will he stay a partner of Nightwing? Will Nightwing get a sidekick and Damian have a different name? What'll happen with Tim? There's a lot of questions going on.
This actually was brought up at the panel when you were talking about Tim Drake. One of the people, because, like I said, it was a Q&A with the audience, and one of the people there brought up Tim Drake as Red Robin. How involved is he going to be in the return? Because they feel that he's, because of his storyline, has been disconnected with the Batworld. And basically they said that they're amazed at the success of the book. It's been more than they expected. Red Robin is going to be continuing as a series. It is something where you're going to be seeing him have adventures in his book, but he is going to be heavily involved in the return of Bruce Wayne. And after the return of Bruce Wayne, he's going to be heavily involved in that world as well. Teen Titans, he's going to be coming back into. The band's getting back together. Superboy, Kid Flash, Wonder Girl, all that coming back in along with Red Robin into the Teen Titans. There's going to be, like I said, a reunion of sorts, though, between him and Bruce when that eventually does come on down the road. I'm of the mind, my personal opinion, and they didn't verify this, I would like to see him remain Red Robin and Damian remain Robin. I think, to me, at this point in time, I think the Red Robin role is working. for Tim Drake in a way that I didn't expect it to be. So where I kept expecting to say this is going to be a temporary thing. Let's see him drop back into the Robin role. I don't know. I'm kind of into this.
I got no issues with him remaining Red Robin and Damian staying on Robin. It's really is a big question. I don't know. We're talking about the band get back together. I'm so excited about that, having the Teen Titans that I really, really just I like this team coming back together, but they're all a little bit different. They've all had little experiences that's going to make it a different read and a different experience for them. So kind of curious.
The Justice League is interesting to me because I was talking about how much I'm enjoying Dick Grayson and Donna Troy. Congarilla and Starman. When they were talking to James Robinson there, he was talking about how when he was approached to do the Justice League, they wanted Starman, meaning the Jack Knight Starman. And he said that, I don't want to use Jack Knight, but I will put a Starman on there, McCall Thomas. And I like that character being on the Justice League. He is going to stay on the Justice League. And Congarilla was the obscure character that the NDO said that you're very strong at writing these obscure characters. Let's bring one in for Justice League. But it looks like other than that, he's going to be forming what would be a traditional archetype Justice League team outside of that. And that is traditional for Justice League to have a couple of characters that are your oddball characters that you don't expect, framed in your big hitters, heavy hitters. Who do you want to see on this team? And not taking away anybody who's currently on it. I'm taking pretty set in stone that it's going to stay Dick Grayson and Donna Troy. We know Congarilla and Starman for sure. I don't know if you're putting a question mark on Mon-El. I'm not right now. I think he's on the team. I don't know what Mon-El's status is going to be at the end of the War of the Supermen. Is he going to stay here? Is he going to go back to the Legion? Is he going to, go back into the timeline that would set him into the future? I don't know. I like Mon-El on the team. I would love for him to stay. I don't know if it's going to be him. Who would you like to see on this team spinning out of this? Because they need members now. Because Hal and Barry are a question mark.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I really like seeing, Dick Grayson, Donna Troy, and, I like seeing that, just that dynamic going on. And
Corey's gone.
Yeah, Corey's gone. Even I do like her, but I understand she's going to be in Rebels, so that's cool. That's a good usage of her. Put her back in outer space, put her back in those kind of stories where, you know what? If they're going to have a strong usage for her, let that happen. That's great. I'm glad to see Cyborg's on the team, and I hope he sticks around because I think he adds a little interesting dynamic with him and Red Tornado and just, their kind of techno type existence. That's a good, fellowship type deal. I like Mon-El on the team. If after the end of the War of the Supermen, he goes back to the Legion or he has to go back in the Phantom Zone or there's something going on with him, I would like to see Clark come back. And because I think that'd be interesting having Clark with Donna and Dick, having that three and having one member of the original Trinity and the other two spots not of the original. Seeing Clark deal with the fact that it's not Bruce in the cowl, because Dick Grayson has taken up that strong leadership position, and he's Clark is the kind of guy who recognizes where when it comes time for an attack plan, when it comes time for the battle plan, he let Bruce take the command, take the lead on this and that and that. Now he respects Nightwing, he respects Dick Grayson, he respects the training he's received. But when it comes actually to the implementation, when it's not Bruce Wayne in the cowl, how will Clark deal with it?
We've seen storytelling, though, that shows that Clark believes in the leadership abilities of Dick Grayson.
Oh, okay.
So I think he has that view of him where he believes Dick Grayson will be in that spot and would respect him in that role. I'm very curious to see what this team layout's going to be. I won't lie, the Hawks are obviously characters that I would love to see wind up on this team, depending on how Brightest Day. Of course, I'd like to see them wind up on JSA too as an option. Either case, I'm very open-minded where those characters wind up. I want to see the team expanded a little bit and solidified. I want to see a solidification of the Justice League. There, in my opinion, and I've got no problem with them being there now, there's still question marks. And that's something that's being addressed in the current issues where Dick Grayson's saying, we've got to get this team together. And I like that he's saying that because that's saying to me, This is part of the storytelling that we are going to get that, and we're going to get it in a way that makes sense from the story.
And I think we're going to get a solid Hal, and I think Hal, Barry, and Ray, solid members of the team. And
I'd like to see that.
I think they're going to be there.
I'd like to see a Green Lantern on that team.
Yeah, and here's what I'm also wondering, Green Arrow. Because I would like to see Green Arrow on that team. Now, there's going to be...
I don't see it, but... I can see why I know why you think it's cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, because you think about this, we had those classic Green Arrow, Hawkman, interactions where they don't really like each other. They were butting heads. Now, with what happened with Green Arrow and Barry, those two would have issues with each other, especially how the Green Arrow number 30 ended. There's definitely going to be some issues, but Hal is, backing his friend. So I can see Hal saying, yes, we should have a Green Arrow on this team. And I think his presence on that team will kind of be that antagonist, because there's going to be a couple people on there who have the Nightwing, Dick Grayson, Batman. He's got the no-kill clause. That's, rule number one, that you never cross that line. And now if he has somebody on his team who has crossed that line, how is he going to deal with it? I think him being on the team would give us that great dynamic.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that'll be interesting. I'm excited for the Justice League right now because of the promise of what's coming. Because James Robinson did say that for people who didn't like Cry for Justice, for example, that he is getting to epic Justice League stories, the stories that you're used to seeing from the Justice League. That's something we're building to. I'm not a big fan of just dropping teams into wow, bam, this is your team now. Not with all the Justice League's gone through. It needs to be addressed that they've been in this state of turmoil, and it needs to be addressed in such a way where we see how they get back to being the strong league that we're used to without, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman being in play at the moment. So that's interesting to see how that's going to turn out. Cry for Justice was brought up at the panel, and I really respected how they handled this, because the death of Liam was brought up, and that was something that it invoked a lot of emotion. The person who brought up the question was very angry about it. Why did we kill a little girl? And I could see the controversy of it, and I could see why people are upset at it. I think what worked for me with it, and one of the reasons why I wasn't as outraged as I've heard people doing it, is if you're going to do something like this, you've got to do something where there's storytelling that matters, where you see characters reacting in a way where you feel like they're going through the human emotion. What has happened to Roy? What has happened to Ollie? These are things that are going to affect them forever. It's major status quo changes for Ollie, for Black Canary, all of them spinning out of this. The choice of a little girl, was that a good one? I understand the controversy there. I still don't know how I 100% feel about that. I do feel, though, the event happened, and I feel that the writers who have been responding to the event have done a wonderful job of showing us that this is something that matters to the characters that have been affected. And I think that's a key to me, and I applaud the writers who have done that out of this event. What Dan DiDio said was we're in the business of invoking an emotional response, making people care about the books, making people talk about the books. He said some people have been responding very positively to the storytelling that's come out of this. Other people have been very upset. He said we're still, in those cases, invoking an emotional response. And it was interesting to see that addressed that way. And James Robinson came back and said, I want to thank you for asking this question, because he said, it is something that we're being asked a lot. And, they were talking about how that was the point of the whole story, to do that, and trying to do that with care for, the fact that they're taking a character out of play that people are attached to in Liam. Because she's had, obviously with the Titans, with Green Arrow family, with those stories, we've seen her appear quite a bit in this story, especially for me in the Justice League run. Her relationship with Kendra and Roy, when Roy was Red Arrow in there, was something I particularly enjoyed. So this is a character that you've got to, if you're going to do something like this, it's got to show great care to that. And I do think that that's been handled well. I don't know, I still question that decision, but I like the story.
It's weird because I've done such an emotional flip-flop and decisioning on this, on this event and what happened. Now, just so there's no 100% clarity. The fact that a little child died isn't something I'm like glad happened, but as a story element, as a writing tool, that is such a powerful usage of emotional response that I have to say I like it. But just on that aspect alone, I have to say I like it because it does give me that emotional response. Now, do I 100% say yes, it should have happened? Yes, it should have been the little girl. I can't say 100% yes.
Yeah.
Because it is that there is still that that thing about this little child, and so much my emotional attachment to this kid really came with the Titan issues, where we got to see Roy as a single dad. And we got to see just, what a cool dad he is. And you're like, yeah, that's a neat guy. And you mentioned the JLA thing. Like, when he brought her to the Watchtower, and she was dressed in the original Speedy costume, to meet Kendra. I thought that was just a cool thing to do. And I was like, yeah. And it was just, I got that, connection to this little kid. And then when she died, I was like, oh my God. It was a wow moment for me. And I'm still, kind of in a wow moment trying to figure out where I'm at with this. Now, the fact that this is a massive story element, and it's not just something they threw out, let's just kill off the kid.
That would tick me off.
That would anger me, beyond words. But it's not that. There is a reasoning behind this. We're going to see a rebirth, quote unquote, of, Roy. Whether, he's probably going to be called, obviously, Arsenal, I'm thinking, because they keep saying the rise of Arsenal. So, but we are going to see that. But we're also seeing how it affected Ali, how it affected Dinah, how it affected Mia. Oh, God.
Now we're also reading about her mom.
Yeah, her mom as well. There's just these emotional responses that we're going to get. And I really did like Mia's dealing with this because, she's blaming herself. She was the last person put in charge of guarding her. And on her watch, this child died. And it wasn't even, just somebody else's kids. It wasn't like she was a babysitter. This is her family. This is Mia's family. And that was just such a cool reaction that I was like, wow.
I liked Mia's sense of guilt. I was watching her. I was in charge of her. And what do you think about the bloodlust that it created in her? The bloodlust that it created in Ali? We've got to talk about the most recent issue of Green Arrow when it comes to this, because we've seen that Ali was going to keep killing. He killed Prometheus, and Executioner.
Yeah, he was ready to do it.
Electrocutioner was next, and when they're at the point where Mia was going to pull the trigger.
Mia wanted to do the deed.
Ali put a stop to the whole thing, and if it wasn't for Mia, he would have killed him.
Yeah, and that bloodlust was actually so accurate and honest to me that, thinking about just, and it's funny, I can't even say the words. If, like one of my nieces or nephews, if something like that had happened to one of them, just the anger and just the wrath I would feel, seeing it in them, and then seeing Ali see that in Mia, seeing Ali see that and say, no, I can't do this. I can't, I gotta save her. He's like, I've crossed the line. She's not going to. And I thought that was just a cool Ali moment. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like the return of Ali making, this is making his stand, making his, statement as to, I crossed that line. I can never uncross it, but I'm going to protect the next generation.
One of the criticisms of the panel was that we've seen Star City blow up before. We've seen Ali kill before. I think what's working for me is it's going... And the other criticism was that this is heading back to like a longbow hunter style Ali, which to me is, I think, needed right now. I'm looking forward to reading this Ali. It's something where it makes sense spinning out of this. How do you feel about your heroes when they make a mistake like this? Is it something that has this taken you away from Ali or brought you closer to him?
Well, it's weird because it has and it hasn't. I understand why he did it, and I like that why it was the emotional response, as I said, very accurate, very honest approach, and in dealing with who is and why it happened. But we never really want to see our heroes killed. And because of that, I do have an issue, but I like seeing what's going on, why he's continuing on as Green Arrow, why he's going, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen to him on the next step and on the next level.
And I agree with you that idea of the next step, the idea of where this is going to go from here, all that stuff is a key to me. If this story doesn't go anywhere, if there is no resonance to this whole thing, if Ali doesn't, how can you not be changed horribly by the fact that you committed murder?
Right.
You've gone against who you are and what that means. If you aren't affected by that, there's a huge problem.
Yeah.
I like the fact that I'm angry at Ali for what he's done. I like that his wife was angry at him. And I want to see more of where this is going to go. And I want to see how this is going to... Ali's relationship with Star City has changed because of this.
Yes.
Whereas there's people who, because of what he's done in the past, are still supporting him. They know he's Green Arrow.
Yes.
They know Ali Queen is Green Arrow. His identity's...
A full reveal. That was nice. Mm-hmm. And I like seeing that how some of the people, and it was funny because it was, you noticed there was a lot of cops who were like, hey, it was out of respect for what he's done and why he did it. Because you think about with the cops, when you're a cop, you have that, you may have to take life, but you have the rules of conduct. You have the acceptable force necessary to bring down the criminal. Now, granted, Ali's not a cop. He doesn't have that same laws. He doesn't have those restrictions. But the cops were looking at him as one of their brothers. This was a crime fighter. This was a force.
Or also that he saved one of their brothers. Over the time, how many police officers has he saved in those relationships? So it is I like that there is a sense of discomfort by all of those around him. Even the relationship with Hal, where Hal is still his friend, even though he's made a mistake, because you don't abandon your friends. When they go to their darkest place, you don't abandon them. And I would be very disappointed if Hal did. I love that in the epilogue of this issue, Hal was there, and they were talking about, how Ali's kind of come full circle now, and he's realized his mistake. So that is one of those things where, to me, if you don't do that, it's not interesting. If you don't... Barry, I understand Barry condemning him.
Yes.
Because Barry was there for the mind wiping. He was there for the decision. And I like that that's being brought in. That Barry was there for the mind wiping, and he's not going to handle Ali, sanction, this type of violence. He's going to be very angry and very critical of those type of things. So that, to me, is... that handling of it's interesting. What do you think about the relationship between Dinah and Ali being over, where she turned in the ring?
Yeah, I have those emotional reactions on that one as well. On the one hand, I like it because this was that line. This was that one thing that can they survive it? But part of her dealings behind it was, and her reasoning behind it wasn't just because he killed. It was because Ali always tries to push away, and this was his way of doing the final push away of his life, of his wife, of their marriage. And she's like, you know what? This is it. I'm done. And so on one hand, I completely understand her mindset behind it.
Do you agree with her?
You know what? If I was Dinah, I probably would have done the same thing.
And
it
wasn't just over this event. It was over his handling of it.
Yeah. Because he was, it was his deception behind it, his cover-up behind it, and just even...
And how he's using this again to push her away and to keep her out of the loop. Because he did go AWOL. We saw him do this.
Yeah.
And he totally didn't include her. He didn't emotionally bring her in. He abandoned his family during all this. And I thought it was something... And he listened to her. Do you agree with his handling that I'm not going to go after her this time?
Oh, definitely. And once again, that was another thing where, that was, for me, actually, I kind of like that better, than her pushing away. Because with her, I had some struggling and I had some issues with understanding why she did. And then eventually it dawned on me, if I was her, I probably would have done the same thing. Mm-hmm. So that's why I accepted what she did. But with him, I really like that because he's like, she's better than I am. I shouldn't be in her life. If I'm not in her life, there's a chance she's going to have a better life than, with me. And I thought that was a cool thing. That was a cool kind of sacrifice. It's a far better thing I do than I have ever done before, kind of deal. And I thought that was a neat way to end their relationship.
Yeah. What do you think of the series ending? And they're doing a relaunch. Do you agree with the new status quo? I'm for it. I'll tell you right now.
I understand why they're doing it because there's such a dramatic change. They want to redo it. Personally, for me, they didn't need to. They could have just gone to Green Arrow 31 and just continued on right through and they could have dropped the Green Arrow Black Canary and just gone 31 and just continued on with the cycle. But you think about it, when the last series ended and became Green Arrow Black Canary, they stopped it. 75 was the last one, so they redid it. So I'm okay with it. I have no anger towards it. I understand it. It's cool.
I'm glad they wrapped up what they did in this issue before doing that, though, because they put him in the status quo now, and we'll start him off with that. This should not have. I'm glad this was not the first issue of the new series.
Hope this craft can withstand this powerful force.
Joining us from C2E2 is friend of the show and writer Gail Simone. And Gail, welcome back to Raging Bullets.
Yeah, hi Raging Bullets. Hi Jim and Sean.
Welcome back.
No, okay. I will do this if Jim promises not to sing.
I already loved you. I love you even more because there's very few people that side with me. I always get abused on this.
For you, I will not sing.
Ian with a random shout out. I will only listen to this interview if Jim does not sing. Bye.
One of the things that I was excited to ask at one of the DC panels, Birds of Prey, you're back on Birds of Prey, one of my all-time favorite books of yours, if not my favorite, Misfit. We are going to get some Misfit?
We are going to get some Misfit.
Yeah, that's
how could she stay away from Oracle for very long?
She's a character I've honestly been missing a great deal because we've got Black Alice back in Secret Six, and she's kind of her opposite end of the spectrum.
Exactly.
So, what character, though, with going back to Birds of Prey, was there a character, or is it just being able to work with the whole team again? Are you most excited about, what makes you most excited about coming back to Birds of Prey?
First of all, I think Birds of Prey is a necessary DC book, so I'm really happy that they're keeping it in the DC world, and I'm happy that I'm going to be writing it. Those are my girls, and I have a great time when I do it. But to be honest, I'm probably looking forward to getting back to Black Canary the most.
I loved your answer at the panel when we were talking about, people were saying that she's had a bad year, it's been kind of a rough time for Black Canary, as far as from where she was, because I personally loved when they made her the leader of the Justice League. I thought it was her time, I thought she worked out great, it was a natural kind of flow from where she was in Birds of Prey, and then, they're right, she kind of stepped back a little bit. Your answer was great, though. You're like, that's over now. What do you want people to know about Black Canary? For people who've never read Birds of Prey before, what do you want them to know about Black Canary in this book?
I want them to know, first of all, Black Canary is a survivor. And also that she just has this really deep, strong love for what it is that she does. And also, I've always thought that Black Canary was the number 2 female character in the DCU after Wonder Woman. So I want people to know that.
To me, one of the great things about the Birds of Prey break has been so much has changed in the DC Universe since you were last on this book. How does the changes in the DC Universe affect the Birds now that the book's being relaunched, this team's coming back together? How is that going to affect them?
Well, some of the changes that I'm really excited about between then and now is they've got this new very cool base of operations in Gotham City now, and we're establishing that Oracle is the 911 operator of the entire DC universe, and at this point Batman needs the Birds of Prey rather than the other way around, so I'm very excited about that.
Shifting gears a little bit to Secret Six, issue number 20 just came out, and it was easily my favorite issue of the book, in a series that has just been my favorite book month after month. It was Catman Unleashed. What is it about Catman? I can tell when we read this character, this is a character you just love working with. What do you love about working with Catman so much? Because there's definitely an affinity there for this character and what you can do with him.
I think for me with Catman, other than the fact that he's dead sexy, is that I love the old Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan, and so I kind of see a little bit of that in Catman, and we've updated him, and then to give him his whole thing with the lion pride in Africa and how he remade himself, and I'm a sucker for the downtrodden character that pulls themselves up by the bootstraps and then is able to accomplish things like that. And then I really like the fact that we don't know if he's good or bad, really. He's kind of unpredictable, like a cat. He's got these certain instincts and survivor skills, and
One of the strengths of your work has been the building of relationships between the characters on your teams. We see this with Huntress and Zinda. We see this with Huntress and Oracle. Black Canary and those same characters. We see it in Secret Six with Deadshot and Catman. And one thing I loved is Deadshot comes off as this person who's only out for himself, and that is very much who he is from at times. But it's not his whole story. Those moments in issue 20 with Catman just blew me away, where you could see him he was like analyzing the situation with him, and it was very clear that this is not the way he would normally react if it was anybody else. And I love that there's a distinction in that relationship. What is it, when you approach a book, do you try to say to yourself, how will these characters play off each other? How will they react realistically off each other? Because that's one of the things I like. I feel like they're real people because of when you do that.
Anytime that I'm writing a book that has a team of characters or a little bit of a larger cast, it's really important to me that they each have their own voice, their own personalities, their own backgrounds, their own reasons why they do what they do. And so I put the team together according to that and what kind of dynamic it's going to have all together. And I just think that Deadshot and Catman are that perfect, quote, bromance that you can have in a comic book. And I don't know, I just think it's fun. It's fun to have them have that kind of friendship, and yet they're, as you said, Deadshot's out for himself in the end anyway.
I know you have to be over the DC booth. There's one question I want to ask you before we go. Welcome to Tranquility. Do we know when that's coming? I know that we've got a mini-series coming for Welcome to Tranquility.
Yeah, we do. We're doing Welcome to Tranquility in series of 6. Mm-hmm. And so the first trade paperbacks have been collected and they're out. And then we start on the third trade paperback will start coming out one issue at a time in July.
Very cool, very cool. So we're going to be getting actually 3 books from you this year.
Yes, you
That's going to be
plus
awesome.
A super secret project with Ethan Van Sciver.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
You've been teasing this for some time too, so it's one of those that I've been chomping at because I know I can't really ask you about it because you can't say anything, but I'm excited because
I'm excited too.
Yeah. Welcome to Tranquility. If it does well in this series, will we continue to see more 6-issue arcs?
Oh yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
that was always what I wanted was 6-issue arcs, but we decided to try the monthly, but the art chores are difficult, and it needs that breathing space.
Yeah, and it works that way because it does feel like little mini movies,
mm-hmm.
Like made for TV movies.
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff
the way
that
I like it. It's set up that way.
Yeah, that's great. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I think that you guys covered it all. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you as always for the support of the show and for the friendship. So. Joining me right now is Steve Saffel from Titan Books. And Steve, welcome to Raging Bullets.
Thank you very much.
Steve, you and I were talking yesterday about some of the great books that are coming out from Titan Books. The one in particular that I was excited about was Simon and Kirby. And could you tell us a little bit about that book?
Well, what's interesting about Simon and Kirby, everybody knows that they created Captain America, and that Joe Simon was actually the first editor at Marvel Comics when it was Timely Comics back in 1940. Well, after their stint at Timely Comics, they went over and did stuff at DC. But outside of that, they did some amazing superhero material. They did, even before Timely Comics, they did a thing over at Prize Comics called The Black Owl. But after the war, when they came back from World War II, they did Stuntman, Captain 3D, The Fighting American. They did so many cool projects. And we're going to do a 480-page book collecting all of those Simon and Kirby superheroes.
That's fantastic. See, to me, what's great is I love seeing these classic creators, stories that I've never heard of.
Right.
Stories that, because I love the collections, the classic material that have been going out now. DC's been collecting in hardcover.
Right.
A lot of Simon and Kirby material and a lot of Kirby's material. And it's been great for me because a lot of that I haven't read.
Right.
But as I've been reading it, I want to know more. I want to see, because the ideas are what's fun with comics for me, to see how when a new character was created, it was really created because there was a story they wanted to tell, and they needed a character that would really fit into where they wanted to go in the direction they wanted to go. And it was
what's cool with that is that the guy who did the introduction for us on the Simon and Kirby superheroes is Neil Gaiman. And Neil, in essence, said a lot of what you were talking about there. We got a quote from Jonathan Lethem as well that said basically what you just said. This is stuff nobody knows about that is just this treasure trove. And Neil revealed some amazing things I had never realized of how his career links with Joe Simon so much more than I would have ever imagined. It's a very cool, when he sent that in, we were just blown away.
What I like about that is it's like we're getting new material from them because it's stuff that I've never heard of before. And that to me is just, I'm like, wow, it's like we're getting brand new.
You're actually getting new material from them because, well, here's the thing. For example, Fighting American has been collected before, but never completely. There's this one story, for example, that George Tuska illustrated for them that never appeared. We have 8 of the 9 pages, I think it is, and we're going to be running that from original art. Thanks to the guys at Tomorrow's and some other sources, we were able to pull together a stuntman story that never appeared. Joe had in his archives some double-page spreads that they had done, including the opening page for this story. Other people had this story in various pieces, which we pulled together for a stuntman story that's never been seen, and is very weirdly behind the scenes, because Joe and Jack would write the story, pencil it. Then Joe would have one of the staff members at Simon & Kirby do the black outline before someone formally inked the story. This story is black outlined, fully lettered, complete, but not yet inked. So you actually get to see something in the middle stage.
Wow. And see, I'm a fan of that because I'm not an artist myself. One of the things I enjoy about comics is seeing how different artists approach the comic book process. It's like director's cut on DVD, director's commentaries on DVDs. It's like the extra features where you see the creation of that. I'm a fan of that in comics, and I think that's great. The other thing I'm a fan of too is, as a kid growing up, when I would read comics, you get them from the grocery store, things like that.
Right.
You would get an issue, and if you were lucky, you would get the next issue.
Right.
You know, if your timing was good and it happened to be there. There was a lot of times where depending on if we went to a store that we didn't normally frequent, I might get a comic and then not be able to get that for another 2 to 3 issues.
Right.
With these collections now, it's material that growing up was available to me, but I didn't get to read all of it. I didn't get to enjoy all of what the creative teams were putting together, and this is great.
Well, and of course we started this with the best of Simon & Kirby, which we brought out last year, and that is a very cool book. It shows a little bit of everything that they did. Excuse me, and we just got an Eisner nomination for that book. And so we're shooting for an Eisner Award on the best of Simon & Kirby, but that one was our first in the whole Simon & Kirby library. Right. This is all being done with Joe Simon, and the cool thing about this is Joe is still around. We are still doing this with him. And Joe's going to be 97 in October.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
It is.
And you know, it's got to be great for him to see his work collected, because one of the great things about these hardcover formats now is to me, it's really honoring this as an art form. Mm-hmm. These books are beautiful. They're put together in a way that, you know, it feels special when you're looking through it. And that's for fans of comics and fans of history and everything. It's great to really see them collected with such care.
I'm going to be honest with you here. I think we're actually doing state-of-the-art here, because we've got a fellow who's going in, taking all of the artwork, and he is restoring it digitally in a way that he is cleaning up the blacks. All of the off-register is fixed. It is cleaner than it's ever looked before, but it still uses the original values for all of the color. It feels like a comic book, but it's the comic book the way the creators would have wanted it to see. What's cool about the superheroes also, we were able to do a lot of the stories from original art. So we're not even doing it from scans of the comics, we're doing it from the crisp black artwork itself. So for things like The Fly, Private Strong, you're actually going to see it cleaner and nicer than it has ever appeared in its entire history.
That is really cool. I'm a big fan of that too, the restoration process. And that's actually great for a new fan like me who hasn't seen this material, and maybe a fan who did get to see portions of this material. They're actually going to get something new and fresh out of it because of the restoration process. So there's something for everybody on this one.
It is actually going to look better than any collection that you've ever seen of Joe and Jack before.
Nice.
And possibly, to be honest, the best of Simon & Kirby was state-of-the-art until this next book.
That's cool.
So it's a lot of fun.
I want to make sure that I shout out, it's TitanBooks.com.
TitanBooks.com, yes.
So please make sure to go to TitanBooks.com to check out. You have a lot of works available. Can you share some of the other books that they can check out at Titan Books?
Well, the cool thing about Titan is we're sort of a total pop culture publisher, so we get to do a little bit of everything.
Nice.
We do collections of things like Tank Girl, Lenore, James Bond, Modesty Blaze. We do big art books like Hammer Horror and Hammer Glamour about the Hammer films. Mm-hmm. So we have a little bit of everything. Right now we've got an amazing kick-ass book and I mean that literally. It is a book about Kick-Ass, but it's about the making of the comic and the making of the movie, and it's really in Mark Millar's own words. So it's this incredibly visual piece where you actually get to compare the artwork from the book, John Romita Jr.'s artwork, with the way it appeared in the film, side by side. And it's just so cool.
And that's cool for me because I actually I'm excited for the film. I haven't read the original comic yet.
Right.
So for me, that's something for me where I'm like, and I'm going to want to read the comic too. So now I can read the comic, watch the film, and enjoy that book and get like the whole experience of it. Which is great because we actually get to be with the original creator on that journey.
Plus, we have a lot of commentary from the people who worked on the film.
Oh, cool.
So you get a little bit of everybody, but it's a very edgy design. We've got a guy named Martin Stiff who's the artist or the designer on a lot of my books, and he did that book. And it's just, it sort of defines how that kind of a book should look.
It sounds to me like the philosophy of Titan Books is really to take a look at the project and to create a book that matches the project versus sticking to one format. You know, saying that, hey, we really want an artistic presentation of what we're doing and what would best suit the material that we're presenting here.
Exactly. I mean, with the Best of Simon and Kirby, we used that oversized format that had been used by Mark Evaniers' Kirby biography. Mm-hmm. We actually got Mark to contribute to that book, too, and as a result, it's a perfect bookend there, the two projects. For the Simon and Kirby superheroes, if we had done that size for a 480-page book, it would have been prohibitively expensive. So what we did, though, we didn't go with the Masterworks size. That would require us to reduce the artwork. We went with that sort of Marvel Visionaries size that would allow us to reproduce the artwork full size as it originally appeared. So you don't lose anything. And we go with matte stock because it now looks like a comic book page. But we go with a matte stock that will support the color, so it's more vivid than you would have got on the old newsprint.
I loved as you were going through the website just the amount of variety was there, because I am a fan of the Hammer horror films. I'm also a huge James Bond fan. So as you were going through, I'm like, wow, not only the books that we're talking about right now, but if I go to the website, there's a lot of material that's available there for me, and I'm a big fan of diverse publications. Yeah. I like to read a lot of variety. I have a lot of interests. So for me, it's great to know that there's a website I can go to with Titan Books and to be able to see a lot of different kinds of products that I can pick up. So I encourage our listeners to check out TitanBooks.com to see if there's something there for them, because it sounds like it's kind of a no-brainer. You're going to find something you're going to like.
Well, and I've got a few other books coming up this year that I'm just like totally blown away by, partly because I've got so much work still to do on them. But we've got Jim Lee Icons, the art of DC and Wildstorm art of Jim Lee, where his staff, his people are helping us put together some amazing surprises, including that brand new Legion story that he's been talking about for a while here. He and Paul Levitz collaborated on that, and I've been seeing pages on that, and it's just amazing.
Wow. So it's actually something that is going to be super current then when it comes out.
Very, very current. We've actually been working to see to it that we get things that aren't yet published because we do want it to be current. We want it to actually be current for several months after it appears.
Nice.
And then we've got, I'm doing an Art of Drew Struzan book. A lot of people don't know who Drew Struzan is by name, but everybody who is listening to this has seen artwork by Drew Struzan. Practically everybody in the world. If you have seen a poster, a movie poster for Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Hellboy, Back to the Future, Police Academy, Pan's Labyrinth, then you've seen Drew Struzan's artwork because he did all of those paintings. But something that's never been done before there, we went into Drew's archive and we're showing all of the preliminary artwork that leads up to the painting as well as the painting itself, including a couple of movies that the finished work never occurred. We've got comps for a Buffy the Vampire Slayer poster that he never finished because the studio went in another direction. And same thing with Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
And I'm a fan of that. That's one of the things that I'm really enjoying about our conversation here is, as you're mentioning these books, it's not just the material that we've seen. It is things that maybe were abandoned or changed or never finished. I'm a fan of seeing those things because I like seeing, what direction were they thinking about going.
Yes.
Why did they make the changes? And those are things in books that I really enjoy because that's where you get into the head of the creative then.
Yeah.
And in his case, then we're getting into his head to seeing his sensibilities and how he went in certain directions and creatively said, you know what, I was thinking of going in this direction, but we decided that this would work better.
Right.
And those are the types of things when I read these books, I want that because it's something that's brand new to me and eye-catching and I connect. And I actually start looking at then the piece that we did see released in a different way because I know the process and how it went there. And it opens me up to a new experience.
I was showing somebody the other day the difference between the final poster for Back to the Future and one of the comps that he had done, and they are so totally different. And the guy who's looking at this is like, whoa, I've never seen that. And that's the feeling we want everybody to have. It's funny, but the guy who owns our company, Nick, his feeling is he wants to be publishing books that will knock his socks off. He is personally invested in doing just exciting books. And that works perfectly for someone like me who's an editor who really wants everybody to have a great time with every one of these books.
I actually applaud you guys for releasing the Simon and Kirby work because for me, it's new material to me.
Yeah.
I've become very recently a Simon and Kirby fan.
Yeah.
So it's great. I'm like a sponge right now. I want more. And when I hear about new books being released, but not only am I interested in those books from you guys, when you're talking about the Jim Lee one, I'm like, oh, this is great. So your site, titansbooks.com, is one I'm going to be bookmarking to regularly check out to see what new material you guys have, what are the status on these books, when can I get them, and I think that's going to be great, and I really appreciate you coming by and chatting with us about these books because it's opened my eyes to some new product that I'm going to be able to check out.
Yeah,
and I know for our listening audience that that's stuff that they're going to be checking out as well, and it's really great. So it's been a pleasure to meet you. Is there anything else about Titans Books that you'd like us to know before we wrap up?
Well, I mean, we've got so many different things coming up. You really do get everything that you could imagine. We do comic strip reprints like the James Bond and the Modesty Blaze, but another one that I'm working on right now, we're relaunching Beetle Bailey.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to start at the very peak of Beetle Bailey. We're working with Moore Walker. We're working with Brian Walker. We've been doing the Hagar the Horrible books. We've got Sergio Aragones doing an intro and illustration for the next Hagar the Horrible book.
Nice.
And one thing that we do is we really try to see to it that these are in fun, affordable formats. The Simon and Kirby book, 480 pages, but it's still going to be under $50. These are things that you're going to be able to enjoy.
And you know what? That's a lot of value for under $50.
Oh, absolutely.
480 pages. I mean, that's wow.
It is, and it is literally covering 20 years of their career in a way that's never been covered before. Mm-hmm. With Jim Lee, we're really working our tails off to see to it that everybody who gets that book is going to be getting a bunch of stuff that they have never seen before, because there's just so much that Jim has done to innovate over the years. There's the stuff that he did after he came back from Italy and when he was evolving so brilliantly. It's just going to be so exciting, and I think that if the readership can enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying it, then I think we've done our job.
I like your enthusiasm about it because that to me shows that you're a fan of the work, and the idea is, as a fan, is to think about what would fans want to see.
Absolutely. That's part of the knock your socks off philosophy.
Yeah, and that to me is what I immediately, when I see people that I can connect with just in conversation, that to me is saying, okay, I want to be checking out TitanBooks.com and seeing what material you guys are publishing because you're thinking of us.
Picture this. I took the owner of the company, Nick, up to meet Joe Simon one time. He'd met Joe before, but we went up one day, and we sat there, and Joe just started talking, and it was sort of, everybody was sort of quiet. It was early in the day and everything. And 3 hours later, Joe stopped with the anecdotes about, every era in comic book history. and my boss, who has known everybody over the years. He knows Neil Gaiman, he knows Brian Bolland, he knows, he knew all of the greats, is still sitting there utterly in rapture listening to this man talk about things that he's the only person who knows all of them. Joe Simon is really the guy who has now been through the entirety of comic book history. We're doing his autobiography, and it's going to be amazing because he's our guy.
This is fantastic, and I do want to thank you for taking time to sit down and chat with us.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate this. I love my projects, and I love to be able to tell people about them.
That's perfect, and we'll definitely be checking out Titan Books and the upcoming projects, so thank you very much. Charles Sellner of Visionary Comics. And Charles, you and I were talking about digital comics and what Visionary Comics is doing. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about Visionary Comics and what you guys are doing over at Visionary Comics?
Thanks. Visionary, we're actually a digital publisher. We're a little bit different than a lot of publishers who mainly are just taking their print material and putting it into digital. We're set up with all the major venues. We release a mixture of reprint, but we also release all new original material that it's exclusive to digital. And we're set up with most of the major venues, like Panelfly, Comics XP. We're in talks with Comixology, so we're going to be on all of them by the end of the year. And that way our books are available across multiple platforms for computer, iPhone, the whole bit. It's been fun.
See, to me, one of the things that I'm excited about with the digital age is, as a comic fan, I feel part of my frustration is I look at what we consider to be high sales numbers in comics right now, and I feel with the quality of talent in comics today, I feel that we aren't reaching the audience that comics could. I feel that there is an audience out there that isn't reading comics now that is outside of the traditional comic fan. And I do think where I'm excited about the digital medium, people get into the whole paper versus digital. I look at it more as digital's an avenue to a new audience, to fresh faces who haven't experienced comics before. Yes, me as a comic fan, when I see digital work, I love having a new way to read comics. Yes. So when you're talking about the things you guys are doing at Visionary, I'm excited. But I'm also excited for what Visionary Comics is going to be doing to reach a new audience.
Yes.
And that to me is, what are some of the books that Visionary is currently working on, or Visionary is releasing as far as the digital end?
Well, the book we did in print called Headlocks, we did print through Marcosia. We're releasing that in digital. We also did a graphic novel with Eigo Manga that we're re-releasing as Frog Princess.
Headlocks was the one about the wrestler, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Very good.
Yes, I'm first real wrestling comic.
Yeah, I really liked that one. It was yes, very good.
It's very cool, very cool. But we've also done a number of original books. We put out a one-shot titled Prosperous, which got a lot of comparisons to Vertigo books. Beautiful horror story. We also put out a science fiction book called Regulators. It's all new original. Other repackaged stuff we did, Mike's and Giacomo's Tales of the Starlight Drive-In, which was print published by Image.
Yes.
CBG Award. We put out in digital, Phantom Jack. A nice little mixture, a nice little variety.
Yeah. So there's really something for everybody at Visionary Comics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm a fan of the variety of comics. I'm a fan of the fact that there are different genres. So every genre can really be hit by comics. So when I see a company that's looking to showcase and spotlight that gets interesting to me, because then the website gets interesting to follow. Where can people find out more information about Visionary Comics?
At our main site, which is visionarycomics.com. Very easy to find. All our comics are listed, and you can find all the venues that we're set up with as well.
Well, I'm really excited to follow Visionary Comics and to see the exciting things you're going to be doing. And I thank you for taking steps to just increase digital publishing. Because to me, I like I said, I think that there is an untapped audience out there. Not just me. I want to see more people reading a lot of this quality work. And I think it is people who are pulling up these digital devices that are going to want to try out comics that they haven't been before, because it's an immediate download. You don't have to. And I think that's going to bring. I think that's also going to bring people into shops. I think that's also going to bring people to look for collected editions, things like that. I think it all goes together, and there's an energy to it. That's great.
Agree with you 100%.
So thank you for being on the cutting edge of that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
Alrighty, and we're going to go into the Brightest Day panel. And, of course, joining me is the amazing, the Super Mandy. Dun, 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 dun. And you actually, all serious and joking, you were awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Reserved spots, held spots, and then I, like an idiot, I left my notepad at home. Not home, I left it at the booth. And you're like, here, use mine. And it was like, thank you very much. You are truly super.
A Wonder
awesome
Woman
person.
notebook.
Also, I want to introduce, it's Life in the Gutters, Mandy Stegall from the website. If you've been checking out our website, Mandy writes actually for our website quite regularly. So thank you so much for your work on Life in the Gutter.
Thank you.
Yeah, I probably should have said that. Shouldn't I have? Sorry. No, the first.
We'll let it slide this time.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's your freebie, though.
That's
more.
my one freebie.
No, no more.
This is not going to be good then. With the Brightest Day panel, we had Ian Sattler, James Robinson, Jeff Johns, JT Cruel, and they made sure how to pronounce his last name, and it is Cruel. David Finch, Pat Gleason, Gail Simone, and Adam Schlagman.
Wait, I have a question. Actually, his last name, I am known for name butchery. Was there really a confusion as to how to pronounce his last name?
Apparently there was, and I think it was more of an inside joke amongst them because they all kind of chuckled about it.
Yeah.
And, so I think it was an inside joke amongst them. Someone probably mispronounced his name or,
They always laughed when they said his name is Schlagman.
I thought JT Cruel, though.
Oh, JT Cruel, yeah.
It was an inside,
Well, is it Cruel or is it
Cruel or stuff like that?
Cruella,
There's not enough vowels for any of that.
Hey, I'm just guessing here. I don't know. I'm
Has that always been an issue? I mean, who says we need vowels?
True.
I'm so sorry I started this. Back to Brightest Day panel. I keep doing that. I think Brightest Day to me feels like such a continuation of the stuff that was going on in Blackest Night. I keep referring to it as the Blackest Night panel, but it's actually Brightest Day.
It's Brightest Day.
And the panel did open up, and it was kind of neat because they acknowledged a couple people. And the one guy they acknowledged, he was wearing matching hats to his shirt. Yesterday he had a Red Lantern shirt and had this bright red hat on. Today he was wearing a White Lantern shirt and had the white hat on. And it was kind of neat when they actually pulled the guy out and showed people it, and they were like, called him up, and they were like, hey, thanks a lot, kind of deal. And there was also, they pulled up these 3 people. They had shirts.
This was really cool.
Multicolored shirts, the different, like red, blue, and green. And on there was a coin that had Jeff Johns' face, and you look and you see "In Johns We Trust," and it was really cool, kind of funny. They kept throwing.
They ran with it too.
Oh, they ran with it.
They're like, you know what? We're going to start minting those coins, and if you want to buy something from DC, you have to pay in the coin,
John's currency. Yeah, DC Direct will now start shipping those. It was a free. They kept playing off. It was a nice couple running jokes they kept going through.
I think Johns went back and shook their hands or something and got a closer look or something or other that was behind us, but.
He definitely, because, he went up to him and shook, hey, thanks a lot, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
He was just, he's always been very gracious in this. And it was funny because as I was showing up to the panel, I saw him outside the panel getting pictures with people. And it was right before the panel, he still was like, hey, cool, no problem, and very friendly and just open. And it was kind of neat. It's a quality we always see from him, and it's something I always like about him. Now, they started off with talking about the Brightest Day proper, the main title, the main series, and they just want to start asking about asking different people about the different characters and different stuff that's going to happen with them. And it's of course they threw out the general stuff that Brightest Day is really about why these people came back, what was the reasoning and purpose and the story behind them coming back. And it's stuff we've heard, but it was kind of neat when they kept going through each of the different characters. And they started off with Jade. And this was, one of the ones that I didn't even think this would be a possibility. And I thought it was kind of cool. Robinson threw out that she is going to be the Green Lantern presence.
Did they show you guys the cover of the crossover for JSA JLA?
They did.
Yes, they did. Beautiful,
and
really
I hadn't
good.
seen that yet, so I was.
Did anybody ask about Alan Scott? Because isn't that Alan Scott that's in the background that they're all fighting?
No, nobody asked about Alan Scott. They talked about one of the things that they're going to cover in JLA is the Starheart entity and what part it actually plays in her power.
And also
where
Obsidian's
it comes from.
power.
And Obsidian's power as well,
They talk about
right?
both of them. It's really, they're going to explain and go a little bit more in depth on it and, showing her and him and all that. It was kind of neat. And plus, they also said she is going to be the Green Lantern presence on the JLA.
There was some great JLA news coming out of that DC editorial, too.
It really sounds like he's shaking up the JLA, and I'm thinking, just from the grinning on your face, I probably can guess some of the stuff that maybe happened there and some of the stuff from the DC editorial.
Well, they mentioned at that panel, and I know I'm going to be bleeding over to some of the other panels, but Justice League, for me, one of the keys of what Robinson's been doing is I like that he's been talking with the characters about the need to get a foundation going for a good, strong team. I like that we see Dick Grayson taking a strong leadership role. I like that we see Donna Troy loving being a hero again and finding some enthusiasm in that. There's something.
She finally feels like she's found a place. Like she knows what her personality is.
Yeah.
She's not a stand-in for Diana anymore.
And that to me is so exciting. Supergirl's going to be on the team, and I love how Supergirl and Dick Grayson are going to become kind of their own world's finest. Where these two are going to have like a brother-sister style relationship where we get to see kind of a strong formation there. Robinson, he was talking about 4 years worth of stories that he has coming out of all this, and I think it's great. Just because you were mentioning Justice League.
It was 17 by the end of the panel.
Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, one of the things that I liked about him was, and it was a running joke that led through multiple panels, where he would throw out specific issue numbers. Yeah. You'd ask him a question, and he'd throw out, bam, like they talk about the JLA, JSA crossover, and like, 47. Boom, just throw it out there. Now, who knows how much of these were jokes, how much of it was true and serious? I don't know.
Dude, none of it. I guarantee you he was throwing that out because actually Sattler kept making the joke that Robinson's revealing everything. And I guarantee you he was throwing those things out there to show that, I think it was to give people confidence that he's got a long-term plan for the Justice League. And I've always felt that since he's taken over the Justice League book proper. But it's great to see him just say, hey, no, it's coming. Look at all this stuff. Because those issues are coming very soon that he was talking about. So I don't think those were red herrings. I think he was genuinely telling us these are issues to look for.
Right. And they started calling him Captain Specific by the end of the panel, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I do like that he actually comes out and he says,
boom.
Yes,
yeah. It was nice.
It's going to be there.
No, Gail went on talking about Hawk. And with him being on Birds of Prey and just talking about the whole Birds of Prey, and she was funny because she's like, yeah, he's still a jerk, and it's going to lead to some very interesting dynamics on the team. There's going to be some stuff between Hawk and Dove, and there's just going to be a nice play. But it's also said we're going to see like a new style, if you will, to Gotham, and we'll see why the Birds of Prey have to be in Gotham, and why Batman needs them.
Their base is actually going to change the landscape of Gotham, too, which was just revealed at the Batman panel. Also, she mentioned that Hawk, he's going to be kind of a womanizer, where he likes to sleep around, and how is that going to play into the romance that we've sort of seen hinted at in Brightest Day with the two of them kissing. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how all that plays out.
Somebody actually...
I asked about Misfit, because I love Misfit.
Yeah.
And definitely was the answer.
Nice.
Okay,
nice.
Then. I think, didn't somebody ask the question about how soon we could expect Hawk to be naked?
Yeah, they're joking around saying she's got such a passion about seeing Catman naked. How often are we going to see it? And it was a nice, funny moment. And she's like, yeah, probably, definitely. First issue.
If you take this into consideration and you think about this, it's like, not long.
Yeah. So... yeah, I think we're definitely going to get an interesting, because you got to think about it, some very strong-willed, very powerful female characters are going to be interacting with this guy. That there's going to be fireworks, and it's going to be interesting to read. And I'm just extra stoked about Birds of Prey now. I think you made the comment yesterday about how Secret Six now has some competition for the number one book in your stack. So it's going to be interesting to see what we go with. J.T. Cruel talked about Green Arrow, and he made a couple jokes. He's like, there's going to be a lot of gardening going on in Star City. And further, they just continued on about how at the end of Brightest Day, we do see that Dead Man lands at the star and turns it into a giant forest. Well, it's generated by Dead Man. It's generated by that white light. So it's not your normal wooded area. There's something special, something different.
Spooky going on.
And it's going to lead to some interesting stories. And I was like really kind of, the more he talked about Green Arrow, the more excited I got about it.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of stuff through this weekend has been about Cry for Justice, and there have been a lot of angry people, and there's been comments.
Does Leon have to stay dead?
Say again?
Does his daughter have to stay dead if there's a guy running around with a ring that can bring people back?
You know what? No one ever asked that question.
No, nobody asked that question. Uh-oh.
I am.
Cool. I you know what? I wonder if they would do that. Part of me would say no, they're not going to, because... But,
should we skip ahead a little?
Why? Look what just happened at issue 8 at Blackest Night. Look how many characters were brought back that had horrifying deaths in Blackest Night. Why is Leon exempt from that?
Dude, it's funny because I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
That's a cool point. I wish you had been there to ask that question.
Jim, should we skip ahead a little bit to somebody asked a question that was somewhat related to that later, and they asked, someone was real upset that Robinson decided to do that he decided to kill Leon, and he said, if you think about the children that are in the DC universe, Leon was the only child of a hero who was normal. You got the tornado twins and everything, and Robinson gave, he was very calm about the whole thing, and he said, within 2 years, you will have a child of a hero in the DC universe that is normal.
Yeah, and it was kind of neat
within 2 years.
Yeah, and thinking about that, the guy was upset about it,
yes,
but he was respectful.
He was.
I liked that, and I thought that was really cool, and just the way he did it, and he was like, it was very hurtful for me, and he was respectful, and that was why Robinson gave him that. He's like, you know what, because of your articulation,
because of the way you said it,
that I'm going to give you this freebie. Now, he didn't say who the hero was or give any clues about that, but it was a neat moment seeing how he handled that and how the person handled it. I thought that was a cool, classy kind of thing for him to do. And I like that. It was something I was like, man, that's neat. Another thing that talked about flashes were a lot of questions and comments and stuff. And the flashes are going to have a major role in Brightest Day. Barry, you think about how much Barry was really about Blackest Night, Brightest Day, it's continuing on. And same thing with the Flashes. We're going to see a lot of the interaction amongst the Flashes. There's going to be a part of them in the universe, so it was kind of neat. Now, we did have one gentleman.
He's very disgruntled.
He was upset because he didn't understand why the Flash #1 had the Brightest Day panel, had the Brightest Day tag mark on it. Banner.
Yes, at the top.
Because it really didn't have much to do with Brightest Day.
I believe he said there was one panel with Digger, and then that was its only connection, and he felt that DC might have been padding the checklist by doing that.
And the cool response they got on that was, one, it's the first issue, let the story build, and you'll see why. But two, this Brightest Day thing is not about a checklist that you have to read, to get the full story. It's not like that. It's about, these are all themed titles within that same theme and that same underlining overall story arc kind of deal, where it's fleshing out these 12 heroes these 12 individuals who have come back, and we're going to learn their story.
I'm gruntled when I look at that Francis Manapul art in Flash #1. That book was so beautiful. If you only looked at the preview pages of Flash #1...
It's pretty.
Oh, do yourself a favor and look at the rest of the book, because it is gorgeous.
Now,
yes, very much so.
Now, they did give a little information on Osiris will be in the Titans.
Is gruntle a word?
Is gruntle?
Gruntle.
Well, there's disgruntled, so there should be gruntled, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but
there was specifically aimed at me.
I would say I don't think so. But okay,
go ahead.
I'll just continue on. Osiris will be.
It's in the same dictionary what Tish is.
That's why I tried to continue on, but oh well. Osiris will be in Titans. They didn't go much detail on that, but they did throw that out there, and I liked that. And those later there.
You mean the Deathstroke series?
Yeah, the new Deathstroke Titans. I actually, when I found out he was going to be in Titans, started second-guessing my decision to not read that.
Isn't that supposed to be about the search for Black Adam or something like that in Titans? Isn't that what?
That's my guess, especially since Osiris is in it now. So it's going to be definitely kind of an interesting read.
Yeah.
And, it was funny because they had a lot of times they threw stuff out there and they never really, compound on it, never built on it.
Give a one-word answer. Yes. Yeah. No. Maybe.
Keep reading was another popular one they kept saying. And it's, a given that they're going to do this kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool.
Right.
They were talking about Deadman. And it was one thing... Live Man. Whichever one you want to go with.
That's
Live
his name
Man.
now.
But they were saying how cool it is.
Just call him Boston Brand.
Yeah, Boston Brand.
There you
go. They're saying how cool it is that, he's now on people's radar. And people are energized about him. And they did ask him, are we going to maybe see a Neil Adams series? And no, but it's on our radar. Especially because there's all this action. And they did give us issue #3. We'll have a really cool, awesome direct quote from Adam Schlagman, fight scene between Deadman and somebody. They wouldn't say who.
They did say someone.
It was that bird's mother.
What he did say is he said it will be someone you won't expect.
Yes. And it's, so we got the, issue 3, we're going to see something quote-unquote awesome. Now, another question going on about with the Osiris stuff, because, the guy who had the hat, he came back, he had a question, and since, we're seeing Osiris, are we going to get more Marvel family returning? And they just looked at him and said, yes. And nothing more. They wouldn't.
Which means it's on their radar.
Right.
Yes.
Wouldn't give any more details, and he's like, any more? Like, and they just kind of give him that grin. He's like, oh, okay. So one word answer, yes. Who knows what it's going to be, where it's going to be. It's probably going to be maybe within Titans, definitely going to be within the Osiris story. Unknown if it's going to be, Black Adam as part of the Marvel family or the actual Marvel family proper. Who knows?
Black Adam isn't a part of the Marvel family. If they're saying Marvel family, they got to be talking either Freddy, Billy, or Mary. I mean, that is the Marvel family.
Yeah. So, I'm probably. The only reason why I say probably is because I don't know for certain.
They actually hinted at, it was either the DC editorial or the Batman panel. I don't remember which. Do you remember them saying something? That there are plans for the Marvel? Because they were
it was asking, DC editorial.
Yeah. They were asking writers about... they were asking about doing the Marvel family. It was James Robinson because he'd done work with the Power Shazam crossover and stuff like that. And they said that he's not working on it, but there are big plans.
Now, they did say that we're going to see Alan Scott's reaction to a Blue Lantern. And it's probably going to be within that JLA, JSA crossover kind of deal. But we are definitely going to see his ring reacting some way to the Blue Lantern, which was kind of a neat thing because they talked about it earlier and they're saying it's coming. And a lot of the stuff they said was going to happen is going to come back. The Orange Lantern Oath. Someone asked about that, and John's like, yes,
it's really long.
It's long and rambling. And it was cool because he gave a little bit more detail. Our buddy kind of likes Earth. There's a lot of greed, a lot of possession, a lot of mine kind of mentality going on Earth. So he kind of puts...
Larfleeze is going to be on the next episode of Hoarders.
Yep. And
I actually know part of it. Somewhere inside there, he says, call for backup. And if you will, and Watish, those are all parts of the rambling.
Jim just had a delayed reaction to Larfleeze being on Hoarders.
I'm like, Hoarders. I'm like, oh my God. Outstanding. They did say he's going to live in a junkyard, though. It was funny because they asked about some of the deputy lanterns, whether there's going to be any ramifications from that. And they said Luthor and Larfleeze are going to have some interesting reactions and interactions between each other, and Luthor is going to kind of get a little bit power hungry, and they're not
as if he wasn't before.
Right, as if he was before. It's going to get worse.
We've seen that preview art of Lex Luthor in the orange suit. I don't know if that means it's like a memory or something like that, but in the future issues coming up.
Is that an Action Comics cover?
I don't know where that was.
Is that one that David Finch did?
Yeah, but I mean there was a which I would take would mean thematically that we're going to see some ramifications from that.
Another thing that they did mention about Lex Luthor is that he's going to start questioning. He's like, is this just natural, or is this some of the after effects of the orange ring taking hold here?
Yeah, and one of the image art they did show was Deathstroke with his rifle, and in the scope was Luthor's head. So who knows where we're going to go with that on Titans. Maybe we're going to get some more stuff going on. And they said some of the interaction between Luthor and Larfleeze will take place in Action Comics. So there's definitely going to be some more dealings there.
Well, it's villains for hire is the premise. So I would imagine that they would be sent after whoever basically hires them to. And I could see Luthor making a lot of enemies that have questionable backgrounds.
Does that mean Osiris is going to hire them to help him find...
Could be.
Ooh.
That could be the connection.
Or is he a part of the team?
Yeah. I don't know. That's the thing. There's a lot of questions. There's some
Maybe
answers,
one leads
more
to
questions.
the other.
Take a look at Deathstroke and who he's been going after so far. He went after Tattooed Man, who is disenfranchised. Why wouldn't Osiris be a part of that? It really fits where Tattooed Man is currently at.
Right.
So I could easily see him being a part of that team, where he's looking for these people who are outside. And Osiris, I mean, who's going to pull him into a superhero group after his previous encounters? To me, that seems like a perfect marriage and a perfect relationship of having him there.
They did let us know we're going to learn more about the other entities, and we're going to see what's going on with the other Lantern entities, where they are, and that's going to be like one of the next main story arcs that start coming out through Green Lantern. So that's coming up very soon, and that was kind of neat. And they asked about Hank Hall, if he's going to remember that he was Monarch, and they didn't give a definite. It was
very evasive.
It was a very vague, and it was a we'll see kind of answer. But it's definitely like see birds of prey. So we're definitely he's maybe going to have some memories. Maybe these people will have some memories of some of this stuff they did before. Who knows? I kind of like that. So we're definitely got some stuff out there in the mix coming in. Now, someone did ask, are we going to see Carol Ferris versus Cowgirl? And we got a definite yes from Jeff Johns on that, so that was kind of cool. Also, some questions always about Wally and the twins and the whole Flash family, the whole Flash universe. He's going to be in the universe, but I don't think he's going to be like a main character. I think we're going to have Wally taking kind of a step back a little bit.
Although Robinson did say he's going to appear in Justice League.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think that means he's going to be on the team necessarily, because it looks like Jesse Quick is going to be on Justice
Jesse
League.
Quick is going to be in JLA.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm thinking that's going to be kind of neat, dynamic, to add to.
Great.
Because, and I love that they're saying Jesse Quick, not Liberty Bell.
Right.
What's going to happen
that's
on JSA?
That's very distinctive. Yeah.
Now, some of the running jokes they had going through here, one of them was Digger, Captain Boomerang. They're like, hey, he came back thinner. And they're like, oh, that's the Blackest Night diet plan. And,
yes.
Another running joke they were running was with why did Martian Manhunter come back with pants? So they're like,
kind of had a Speedo brief thing going before, and
now he's got
tights.
Pants.
He's become modest.
He did wear tights, though, before all of this went down. When he was more in a Martian form, when he was killed, he was wearing like a full suit at that point. So it's kind of like a hybrid of his original look with the one that he took before he was killed.
I will say the guys on the panel were very surprised that this guy that asked that question noticed that. Like, oh, you noticed that, did you? They're like, oh. It's like, man, tried to squeeze that one by.
And the pants thing did get multiple references. They were later talking about Mogo, and throughout issue 47, there's going to be some cool stuff going on with Mogo.
Social butterfly.
And someone's like, they're laughing. They're like, yeah, he gets pants. Kind of little throughout there. And it was just, definitely some, you think, the Green Lantern story's over. No, it's just really beginning. And there's some more stuff, some cool stuff coming down the pipeline, which is kind of cool. Now, someone asked about a rematch of Birds of Prey versus Secret Six. And there was a good reaction to that as well. And Gail said not immediately, but quote unquote, can't see Catman and Huntress stand away from each other too long. So I was like, ooh, so definitely going to get him back in there.
I love that answer, because to me, if you do a crossover right away like that, you lose what is the point of the new series. And I think you need to establish first what is Birds of Prey all about. I love this whole focus on that Birds of Prey is going to be this big entity in Gotham. We're going to see their new base, their new MO. Let's get rally behind that. And then when they're really established and strong, that's when the crossover comes in. So I love that. That to me is just great storytelling, and that's what I want from a series.
Yeah, and it was funny because they also had these images were popping up, and right around that time, and it didn't have anything to do with Gale with Secret Six or anything, but I noticed that it was a Red Lantern cyborg Superman. I keep calling him Cyber Superman.
What do you do with your Superman?
I'm going to continue on. Jeff Johns did give a little bit on the movie. He did give some more, because people are asking for stuff on teasers on the movie, stuff that he's not tweeting. And he did talk about how Sinestro and Carol are really good casting for him.
Mark Strong playing Sinestro, they said he's perfect for it. They said that...
I'm drawing a blank too. What her name?
Blake Lively.
Thank you.
Who was on Gossip Girl, from what I hear, is they said that she's awesome. She will be a brunette.
Yeah. And he did give us, he said he loved the Abin Sur scene. So that's definitely going to be in the movie. And it was, also talked about that Kilowog and Salak will be in the movie as well. So kind of some neat stuff there.
At the Batman panel I was at, movies came up, and people were asking the question about how the writers felt about them changing things for film. And the response, and I thought it was a really good response, that things often need to be changed for the sake of the fact that they're trying to fit into a movie format, the movie amount of time, to make it accessible to the mainstream audience, yet to try and keep the core values in place to please the fans. And Gail Simone brought up the fact that the only time it ever bothers her is when you get a movie like a Catwoman. But she said that, otherwise, you can expect little tiny changes to happen in the films when they go to do it. But if they stick to the core values and everything, that can work and it's fine. She said she considers the movies a different artistic presentation. So, you're going to see, because it's a different artistic presentation, just a little bit of tweaks and things like that. Now, I got to say, my favorite comic book movies, they do have little tiny tweaks, but as long as they stick to the core of those characters, they just get it right.
And somebody also asked the question if Jeff Johns was going to write another episode of Smallville, and let me just start my campaign right now.
Yes.
Gail Simone.
That would be awesome. Get Gail Simone as a
Yes.
writer on Smallville. Let her actually work with the Black Canary they have on there. That would be a cool thing.
Huntress.
Now, oh yeah. Now, Jeff answered it. He said he doesn't have any plans for it right now, and he really only wanted to if he could bring in a
Somebody
new character.
new.
He didn't want to redo another thing with the Legion or redo another thing with JSA.
With the JSA.
So that's definitely kind of a neat thing.
Or Booster Gold.
Yeah. Oh, Booster would be cool. Now, we will get to see more of the Indigo Tribe. It's not done with, so that's kind of cool. And someone asked a nice question. Knock, 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 knock. Someone asked a nice question about Dove, the original Dove. Why didn't he return when Hawk did? And they said it's going to be explained, and also a little bit more information on Dove and the nature of Dove.
It's because when a dove dies, they turn him into soap.
Well, that's what it sounds like when doves cry.
Now, oh God. Now, in Blackest Night, they said he was at peace.
Right, so I think we're going to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
What exactly means in peace.
Right.
And another interesting question that I thought was wonderful. Someone asked Jeff why Hal's dad didn't come back as a Black Lantern. And he said Hal put his father's death to rest, so there would be no emotional response from Hal seeing his dead father come back, so the Black Lanterns didn't bring him back. There's no point in bringing something that's not going to get the emotional response. I thought that was a neat way of thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, of course, because I was expecting to see the dad as well, and we got to answer why. Now, Spectre will be in Brightest Day.
Yes.
And in the editorial panel, people asked about the magic. And they said that's going to be a little bit in Brightest Day as well. So maybe we'll get an explanation, a little bit more on nature of DC magic and whatnot. Not too sure.
It seems like the magic is going to focus around Spectre, though, because he seems to be a big focus. He was brought up multiple times in multiple panels, and it seems to be that is going to be something that's going to be addressed. I can't help but wonder if he wasn't somehow the voice or somehow associated with the voice that was contacting Deadman. I don't know.
Now, someone asked him, they said, Bruce Wayne, the quote-unquote Bruce Wayne skull was in Blackest Night. Will Bruce be in Brightest Day? And they said Batman will be in Brightest Day. They didn't say Bruce. They didn't say Dick Grayson. They said Batman. And they did kind of talk about, with the return, the search for Bruce Wayne.
That wasn't Bruce Wayne's skull.
Yes, we know.
That was the clone skull.
Now, someone asked him a question, will Firestorm die? Yes or no? They wanted a definitive answer. And they looked at him. They looked at him and said, good question. Keep reading. And no answer, no nothing, so it was kind of funny. And John's followed up with, hey, we killed off a baby bird. You never know what we're going to do.
But then they brought the baby bird back to life.
True. Which, of course, does make me wonder more about Leon. Will they bring her back?
And they stated the obvious, too. If you've read Brightest Day Zero, you know that Ronnie and Jason, they don't get along.
Yeah, they don't like each other too well.
No,
and
that's
going to get fleshed out and dealt with, and who knows how that's all going to play out in the end. So kind of looking forward to that, especially because I don't know anything about Ronnie, because I didn't read the previous stuff.
Neither did I.
So I'm kind of curious to see this take on him and see this exploration of the character.
Honestly, when they first showed him, I didn't know who he was.
I grew up reading Ronnie Raymond, and I love that he's back. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how he deals with this world and the modern world, because he's been gone a while now. If you look at how long ago that Firestorm series took place, it's been quite some time. So, yeah, he's been dropped back into the world, but that's got to have some kind of after effect. Years away due. And I hope that is addressed in the series, because I think that's interesting to see how do you not only get back into the series, but, he's been disenfranchised by his partner. So, how is that all going, in the sense that Jason does not care for him much? And they have to coexist on some level, or hopefully coexist on some level. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I'm still incredibly curious how Professor Stein plays in all this.
And Ray Palmer, too, for that matter.
Yeah, because they asked at the end of Brightest Day, how many Adams
would there be?
And they just said no comment. There was a Ray Palmer one-shot coming out, and he'll have small parts in other titles.
And there's a co-feature. It's written by Jeff Lemire of Sweet Tooth that's coming.
Yes.
Which is going to be great.
Right.
Sweet Tooth is excellent.
And what book is that going to be in?
I forget what book it's going to be in.
Yeah,
even.
So do I.
But there's going to be an Adam co-feature coming after the one-shot. Jeff Lemire's writing it, and he also did The Nobody, which is an excellent hardcover from Vertigo.
Now, they asked about the Green Lantern titles. Who's actually going to be in them? So Jeff Johns gave a nice breakdown on it. He's like, in the Green Lantern title, it'll be the New Guardians. Now, he didn't say Hal Jordan. He said the New Guardians, which makes me wonder who all is going to be. Is Hal going to be a Guardian? Is there going to be something with the multicolor things that we talked about on a previous show? Could this happen? So it was kind of neat. Green Lantern Corps will be Kyle, John, and Ganthet, as well as some of your other regular recurring cast that was on Green Lantern Corps before. Emerald Warrior will have Guy, Kilowog, and Arissa, and they said, and there'll be a couple surprises, including a Red Lantern. And that got people asking questions about Guy and just everything. And they said Guy will wear another ring. They wouldn't say what color. They said it wasn't going to be blue, but he will wear another ring at some time. So definitely kind of cool, wondering.
Yeah, they did say that Guy has a very specific mission.
Yeah, in the next couple months, there's going to be a very definite mission for him. And he's not going to be in Generation Lost because of this mission.
Right.
So that's really huge.
He's going to wear another ring?
Yeah. So what's going to be...
Okay, you remember that preview image with the Green Lantern ring?
Yes.
And the Legion ring?
Oh, yeah. Could that be Guy?
The preview image was from the future. Remember, there is a Green Lantern in the future.
Yes.
And it is the one who was Ion.
True.
So, yeah.
That's who that is, not Guy.
Okay. Could be. You know what? Probably. I'll say probably on that.
Levitt said in the DC editorial panel that he's going to be pulling off of stuff that happened right at the end. And not at the end, I'm sorry, through Legion of Three Worlds.
Right.
And in the series before that, which, remember, we already saw Green Lantern appear there. And he was the last one. And remember, he was distancing himself from the concept.
I remember that, yeah.
So I think that Levitz is going to build off of that.
Okay.
But it does leave me interested in what is Guy's mission, because that means that we've got a huge question mark there. We have which that to me has me interested.
And you figure if Guy's in a book with Kilowog and Arissa, it's going to be, that's got to be the mission that they're talking about. So we're going to get more than just an appearance of Kilowog. We're going to get some action, some activation. So that's kind of neat. Now, they also did say the Alpha Lanterns will be making their appearance again. So we're going to see what they're doing and what the current status on those. Now, a guy in a static costume asked the question that really had me excited. He asked, what about Tim Drake, Red Robin, dealing with Captain Boomerang? And we got a one-word answer, soon.
Soon.
So I was kind of excited. I want to see that.
Didn't he say, sooner than you think?
Yeah, sooner than you think, or something like that. So definitely going to be a quickie. So I'm like, yes. Now, the one thing, they asked that question about Zoom. Because they're like, is there two Zooms? And Johns was like, no, there's not two Zooms.
He actually explained it.
Yeah, and
I can't repeat it because
I can't. I got that one.
You've got it. Go for it.
Honestly, I took notes on that and redid it, and I made sure because his answer was cool. Yeah, you took a lot of pictures.
I did take a lot of pictures. I even took video that hopefully turns out fairly well.
Now, what we got on Zoom is Blackest Night was his return. That was his resurrection.
Right.
But when and if you think about that in issue 8, once he comes back, he disappears again. That's him jumping into the time sphere, going to the future, going back to the past, and all that stuff we saw in Rebirth occurred after he was resurrected in Blackest Night,
right.
even though it occurred before the Blackest Night thing. And it's, once again, dealing with time travel, you get these weird, funky stuff. So Zoom's, his status at the end of Rebirth is the current Zoom, is the current status, and it's very cleared out, laid out.
Yeah, he did mention that Zoom, really is very backwards, and he went and he did everything in reverse. I mean, he really did do everything in reverse. He got revenge on Barry before he was even the Flash.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it actually,
it was
great explanation.
It was
nice
a good
layout.
question,
oh,
too.
Yeah, good question.
I can see where people would think that.
The other question about him is, now that he's back, it's been established that he is the one Flash that can change time. So what does his being back mean? What more will we see from him? Will we see more of that? I don't know.
Now, a lot of people had questions about, with people who didn't come back, and especially Ted Kord, Ralph and Sue Dibny kept coming up constantly. Right. And, they said with both of them, they had a really true heroic ending death.
Yes.
With Ted, they didn't want to cheat that. They gave him at rest. He's at rest right now. With Ralph and Sue Dibny, they said that's the best way to have a happily ever after for them, because they're not together.
They're
now,
together.
Are we going to see more of the ghost of them? Who knows? They were kind of sheepish of answering that question, but they're right now. Those three characters are at rest and at peace.
I actually appreciate that so close to the Great Booster Gold story where Ted came back. Because Ted was in that alternate future that was created by his return. And he made a heroic choice again. Not only did he take the bullet, from Max Lord, but he also made a heroic choice there to sacrifice himself again, which I got to be honest with you, if I was in that situation, I'd be like, this alternate future isn't so bad. I don't know that I could do what he did. He made the decision to say this is wrong. And I don't know, if I was dead and brought back, I don't know, I'd go, this is kind of bad. I'd be kind of like, well, I don't know, I could build a shelter somewhere and hide away from this mess. So I thought it was a very cool Booster Gold story, and I'd hate to see that diminish now. Plus, we've got a Blue Beetle that I think is very cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I love Ted Kord, so I'm not anti-Ted Kord. I loved him in JLI. I loved him in his solo series. So I'm not an anti-Ted Kord person. And his appearances in things like Birds of Prey.
But Jaime's cool.
Yeah, he's a great character.
Oh, yeah.
But Jaime is...
Jaime needs a good chance to develop.
Yeah, and I think he's been established. I think what's going to be interesting, though, is in Generations Lost, it's going to be just plain awesome. So
yeah.
I want to give a shout-out to friend of the show, Greg, who was actually kind enough to watch our booth along with Dan Tobby. And they covered us because we wanted to go to the DC editorial panel together and DC Nation because they tend to be the bigger panels. So I want to thank them both. Greg just asked a really good question about the Red Circle characters. And one of the things that they mentioned about the Red Circle characters is while those series are ending, they're doing a one-shot of the Mighty Crusaders, which is the team book, and then that's going to be followed by a miniseries. If the miniseries does well and shows interest, they're open to doing more miniseries with the characters. So we'll see how that turns out. It looks like this Mighty Crusaders one-shot is going to be like short stories focusing on each of those characters, and then it's going to lead into that miniseries. So it's going to be interesting to see.
And hopefully, because we all like them. Really like the Red Circle characters. I was sad to see, especially the Shield go down, and that was something even in the editorial panel, people were throwing that out, asking about that, because they asked like books that were canceled that you'd like to see come back. Shield was one that was mentioned. Yes. Blue Beetle was mentioned. Manhunter still.
They even mentioned Secret Six.
Yeah, like that's still an active one. What are you talking?
Yeah.
Continuing on, a couple stuff, a couple quick yes/no answers they gave out on the Anti-Monitor.
Right.
There's plans for him soon.
Yes, plans for him.
And same thing with the Blue Guardians, because someone asked specifically about that because Ganthet and the other one are no longer Guardians. They're like, well, keep reading and you'll find out.
Yes.
So, it's continuations there. They asked a great question. Max Lord Wonder Woman rematch. And the quote answer, good question. I'm not going to answer, but good question.
Yes.
So definitely wonder what we're going to see there.
I would imagine not yet because of the fact that he's being hunted in Generation Lost.
Right.
With the fact that he's just gotten everybody to forget about him, why would he go and reveal himself to Wonder Woman? Although, what might he do behind the scenes? What might he do to try and get at her without being seen? Are we going to see something like that maybe in Generation Lost? I don't know.
The interesting thing about that is that if she continues to not know who he is, does she make the same decision?
Yeah.
If she's given the opportunity, does she do the same thing? If she's in the same position that she was before.
The position that she was in before, though, was with him with Superman.
Right.
And I think Wonder Woman now is in a much different place than she was in back then. I think that it's been established that she's learned a lot about herself.
Right.
If she did make that decision again, I would be incredibly disappointed because it's ignoring her growth. I think it would be interesting to explore it, though, where she's faced with that opportunity for just what you're saying. But I think it would be a great way to show how much this character has grown since then, which I think would be very cool.
Now, a couple stuff they did talk about with the Green Lantern Corps about alliances between the different colors, different lanterns. They said next Green Lantern Corps coming right up, so it was another soon question coming up soon. They asked about Connor Hawke. And J.T. Cruel had some cool stuff to say. He's like, there's a lot of stories to be told about Connor, about Mia, and he loves the characters. But right now, Green Arrow is going to be focused on Ollie Queen. And that's the main focus of that title. And the way he was saying, I'm thinking we may not see him in JLA now.
Oh, I knew that. It's the most recent issue of Green Arrow. Really, he goes out of his way to distance himself from everybody to kind of refocus himself. His commentary on Mia in particular was very similar to his commentary about his wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, however that's going to work out.
I think they're just separated at this point.
Yeah. I think in my opinion, I think they're going to be permanently separated. But
probably.
Yeah. I think, though, that he's got a different outlook on life, and he is going to be just focused on Green Arrow at the moment, which I think it'll make it more interesting when he does encounter heroes down the road. How are they going to react to him, considering that their last encounter with him was hunting him down for murder?
Yeah.
Now, a couple stuff that people were asking about was with Captain Boomerang Jr. and his connection. Are there going to be further explanation on him and Bart and him and Melanie Thrawn and all that stuff? And they said right now there's no further stories. There's a lot of stories planned for Captain Boomerang, but not for Boomerang Jr.
So they basically established that there's no more stories for Captain Boomerang Jr.?
Yes.
None planned.
You mean the guy that was killed in Blackest Night, there's no more stories for Captain Boomerang Jr.?
Because he's dead.
He's dead. I know, and someone asked, I'm just telling you what someone... But now they did ask about
we thank them
Digger.
for that clarification.
Yeah, well, thank you. But I'm doing this as a segue into something that they did. They did ask about Captain Boomerang and possibility of him in Suicide Squad or possibility of him in Secret Six. And Gail's like, well, I don't see him in Secret Six. Who knows? Could be. We'll see. Kind of nice, vague, general answer. So who knows where we're going to get him? We may get. I'm hoping.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I'm hoping we're going to get a Suicide Squad, either story, maybe a series, maybe something coming up, which would be kind of really neat. And I'm, kind of looking forward to that.
The reception, everything I've been reading about the Secret Six Suicide Squad, that big story, was incredibly positive. So they would be crazy not to follow that up at some point and do more, at least more with Secret Six and Suicide Squad. That gives her something to do with it. Even if they don't do a series, I hope that they come up again in Secret Six, because I liked that relationship. And there's definitely room for round two.
Now, someone did ask a question that kind of angered James Robinson, and honestly, I think it was a justifiable anger.
Yes.
They asked, the guy was upset because Captain Atom is going to be in this whole Generation Lost, and he's like, we don't even know what happened with him. Why with Monarch? The last we saw him was the end of that series, and he was going on, and finally Robin's like, hey, I'm writing a story right now, back up in Action Comics, and that's what
he came out and he said, I'm offended.
Yeah, he was, and no joke here. He was legitimately offended. And he then went on to say, hey, you're going to learn everything about Captain Atom. You're going to see where he goes through this. And it's going to be a nice lead-in directly to where he is in Generation Lost.
Did he say there's one more after the one that just came out Wednesday?
I'd like to say one thing, because I made a comment to Robinson at the DC editorial panel, because I really felt strongly about this. I felt that throughout this convention, he handled himself with a lot of class. I had no problem with people going up and talking about different opinions that they had about Cry for Justice and how they felt about it. But I think there's a way to do that with respect. I was at panels where people were doing it with respect, where they were, sharing their thoughts about Leon's death and how they felt about, that what happened with Ollie Queen and all that at the end of that story, where it was very respectful. respectful to him, and I thought he handled that with respect. But there was times where I thought he was blasted by people that I think they could have presented in a way that showed respect to the writer of that particular story and the fact that he was on stage. And I felt throughout this convention that he's handled himself with class and respect. And I would say at that point, too, with the Captain Atom thing, the poor fella, I think, was probably at his breaking point by then.
Right.
And I really, really felt
he didn't let it show, though.
No.
He didn't. He was very, very classy.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's very, very hard to do because I think that they really took those questions in stride and really did a nice job of addressing them. But I did think that there was times where that was asked, that it was asked in a way that I felt was really inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they were wrong to ask about it, if you felt upset about what happened with Lian. Because, that was, Cry for Justice was an uncomfortable miniseries.
Yes.
That was kind of what I liked about it, to be honest with you, because
that's what I liked about it.
I thought it was very risky, and I love the fact that the guys on Justice League that we can see spinning out of that he is putting together a Justice League team that has been where they were in Cry for Justice. Right. And he establishes that. But if you didn't like the miniseries, that's one thing, but please at least show respect to the creator at this point in time. And I that was something that really bothered me. And I did speak up and say that I thought he handled himself with class with that. I also shouted out the fact that my personal opinion on Cry for Justice, and something that I think has been ignored throughout this, he wrote a darn good Prometheus. He restored that character to the way he was when Grant Morrison created him and made him may he rest in peace, a very smart villain. And I think that was something that needs to be established. But, I've got no problem. When you go to a convention, if you don't like something that a creator's doing and you're going to ask them about it, go ahead and do it. But remember that you need to be respectful of the fact that they are a human being.
Yes.
And, ask the question in a way where you give them an opportunity to give you some honest dialogue about it. And I thought Robinson did that in all cases, but it wasn't always presented in a method of respect. Sometimes it was, and I really give people credit for asking it that way.
The one guy today was very respectful.
Great.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's and that's why you got the little extra
little thing.
You know what? Because you did it in such an eloquent way. Here's a little something for you.
Yeah, that was a cool moment. I really liked that. Now, the ending of the panel basically was the question that everyone keeps asking themselves: does dead mean dead in the DCU? You look at everything.
They brought a bird back to life.
Yeah, so you never know. But I love how when they asked that, they wanted a yes or no answer, and of course they got the answer. Keep reading.
Yes.
So, Brightest Day will explore: is dead? Does dead mean dead? Though, so I'm thinking. I personally think by the end of Brightest Day, we're going to get a more definitive answer whether dead means dead.
Do you want it to? Do you really want it to mean dead? I don't want it to. I'm going to go right on the limb right now and say I don't understand with this obsession with why does dead have to mean dead?
I think especially with something like comics, any kind of entertainment really, if you know that there's, he's dead, if your favorite character bites the big one, and he goes swimming with the fishies or whatever, who's to say that you just don't, is like, you know what, he's dead, I'm going to stop reading now.
Yeah.
But if there's always a possibility and there's always a chance that he could come back, that's what's going to keep you reading.
Hey, comics should be about hope. It should be about that, that better part of life and that looking onto, what the next brightest horizon, the heroes triumphing over evil, and just those cool comic book moments. So for me, I'm going to echo your statements. No, I do not want dead to mean dead. I want that option of the people coming back.
I think the idea and where they're going to explore it is they're going to show what, that the revolving door policy where it's done for no reason isn't going to happen anymore. And I think that's something that really what the fans are clamoring for is that if there's death, death's there for a meaning, and if there's a return, it's there for a meaning. But who wants dead to mean dead? There's too many good stories that have revolved on characters coming back that I don't want to see that. Forget about that nonsense. I don't know why there's that obsession. Just tell good stories and be done with it.
Amen.
Yes.
Now I can get out of here.
Jim, our next episode is going to be highlighted by the Jamal Igle interview. We're also going to go back to our listener voicemails with greatest DC Universe stories of all time. We're going to have more short snippets from C2E2 as well that are going to be on there. So we've got a lot of content coming your way. We have a whole bunch of mini recordings we did at C2E2 from a bunch of independent publishers and things that fall a little outside of our podcast, but also things that fall in our podcast from other companies that are publishing DC-related work. that we're going to be putting out. So we've got a lot of mixture of things from C2E2, but those are short snippets that'll be airing between the episodes. So it's a big packed episode for our next one, and that'll be out midway through this week. But I want to thank everyone for sticking with us, and hopefully we're bringing the con experience to you from C2E2. So much going on, and we have more panels that we're going to be discussing as well. So it's cool.
Bye.